My fusion system. Fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapters 473 to 492. Chapter 473. The Next King. It is over, Watson. Do not forget what you said to me. I do not have high expectations. Just make 10 Starlight tier weapons for me, Seedy said to Watson after noticing King Landhar III and Sylvan had left. Watson's mouth twitched. 10 Starlight tier weapons were insignificant. Even if he had the fusion system, creating Starlight tier weapons would require a significant amount of resources. Seedy stretched her arms and flew back in midair as if she could see through Watson's thoughts. Watson, by defeating King Landhar III, I assisted you greatly. 10 Starlight tier weapons are nothing in comparison to my efforts. I also have a question for you, Watson. Why didn't you remove King Landhar III right away? Instead, you reinstated him. Don't you intend to murder him? Miss Seedy, you should have heard what I said. If I kill King Landhar III now, everything he did will be blamed on me, causing internal strife in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. The Holy Dragon Kingdom will also treat me as a sinner. That is not what I am looking for. No, Watson, you don't get what I am saying. That is not the question I wish to pose. Killing someone does not always imply destroying their body. Taking over a person's body, as I did, is the same as murder. You have something within you that can completely transform King Landhar III into you. Even if you do not do that, you can still control King Landhar III with spiritual control magic. So why didn't you? Seedy was skeptical. King Landhar III would become Watson's follower as long as Watson was willing and the system fused them. He would never have the opportunity to turn the tables. When King Landhar III left with Sylvan, there was a spark of ambition in his eyes. He did not appear to be convinced that Watson had defeated him. Allowing the enemy to live was a terrible mistake. When the enemy grew up, they would plan their attack. Watson appeared to be a very wise man. He would not have been able to defeat King Landhar III if this had not been the case. Why would such a wise man abandon King Landhar III? Watson remained silent in response to Seedy's question. He raised his eyes to the sky. The sky had returned to its original state. A few white clouds floated through the blue sky. Miss Seedy, you are correct. Initially, I intended to seize control of King Landhar III. The reason I did not do so is probably that I still have some things to figure out. In Sylvan's general direction, Sylvan's eyes were filled with conflicted emotions as he held King Landhar III's shoulder. He had not seen the man in front of him in over 10 years. Even though his strength and status had improved 10 years ago, his figure had become much thinner, as if he had been under too much pressure over the years. Avril, if I had known that man was like this now, I would have encouraged you to leave the royal city and join me in the Elven Kingdom. Alternatively, simply abandon King Landhar III. That would be beneficial to both you and me. Sylvan sighed inwardly. His mind flashed back to the scene of him and Avril arriving in the royal city for the first time more than 10 years ago. Avril was the princess of the Elven Kingdom, and he was Avril's older brother. However, he was nothing more than a guard hired by the Elven King to protect Avril. In name, the Elven King had accepted him as his foster son. He remembered it being summer when they first arrived in the royal city. Petals were falling from the sky, and he, Avril, and King Landhar III met for the first time among the falling flowers. His thoughts came to a halt when he heard the voices of those around him. The voice of King Landhar III came from the side. We have arrived, Sylvan. You are gripping my hand too tightly. Can you unwind a little? When Sylvan turned around, he discovered that they had reached ground level. Many ordinary-looking people were on the streets, staring at him and King Landhar III with fear in their eyes. A small group of guards appeared in front of King Landhar III. They knelt on one knee in reverence. We did not get to you in time to ensure your safety, Your Majesty. It is due to our carelessness. Please penalize us. It is His Majesty and the Border Count, Sylvan. He has not been to the capital in a long time. What is he doing here? Was he the one who launched those troops into the sky? Someone recognized Sylvan and began to whisper on the side of the street. It is simply not possible. If Sylvan had brought those troops, he would not be walking alongside His Majesty now. Instead, he would have direct control over His Majesty. After all, Sylvan and His Majesty have never gotten along. There were also dragons in the sky. Sylvan could not have commanded the dragons, no matter how powerful he is, right? Let's wait and see how His Majesty explains it to us. We have no idea what just happened in the sky. His Majesty must be aware. His Majesty told us that the gods were fighting over the kingdom's faith. But it now appears that things are not so simple. If it is just between the gods, why did an army of over 1 million soldiers appear in the sky after the gods attacked? Angels, the sea folks, and the dragons were among them. What brought those races into contact with the Holy Dragon Kingdom and the gods? Under the puzzled gazes of the crowd, King Landhar III first smiled gently and reached out to assist a few guards who had approached him to beg for forgiveness. He said, "It is not a problem. The fight was too intense. If you go there, you will all perish. I do not hold it against all of you." Then he took a look around. "Please be assured, everyone. Nothing has changed from what I previously declared. The gods had battled for faith in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Only Seti, the goddess of shadows and potions, and the time traveler god, who did participate in the battle, survived. Because many people died in that battle, including the Dragon Knight's captain, Julius, and the Campbell family's genius, Augustus. My 2 children were also killed in that battle to protect me." As King Landhar III finished speaking, the corners of his eyes moistened, and a sorrowful expression appeared on his face. What? That battle claimed the lives of His Majesty's children. His Majesty is the father of 4 children. Who was killed? When everyone in the room heard that, they all looked shocked. They were my eldest and second sons. Following King Landhar III's explanation, the audience's expressions became even more shocked. The first and second princes had died. Initially, those 2 princes were strong contenders for the kingdom's throne. Only the 3rd prince was qualified to inherit the throne then, excluding Princess Kiana. Of course, if King Landhar III kept his promise during the match, Watson's name would be added as well. However, everyone knew that King Landhar III's promise was only a verbal promise. After all, allowing an outsider with no bloodline to inherit the throne was not very realistic. The kingdom's future appeared to be dominated by the 3rd prince. Originally, the 1st prince was the oldest and most experienced of the 3. He was also the most likely heir to the throne, while the 2nd prince was wiser and had the most followers. Those 2 princes were thought to have the best chance of inheriting the throne. The 3rd prince lacked the strength and experience of his brothers. Unfortunately, the situation had changed. Many noblemen were among the passers-by on the street, and they were thinking about the situation. Then, they heard King Landhar III said, "I had established the 7 gods in the kingdom to prevent a repeat of the previous demonist church, as well as the expansion of the theocracy caused by only one god. But now I have discovered that changing from 1 god to 7 did not make much of a difference. Those gods still wanted to interfere with the kingdom. As a result, I decided to eradicate all beliefs of gods in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. I want to get rid of all the churches. Rather than believing in the gods who would bring the kingdom to ruin, it is better to believe in oneself." At the same time, Watson had brought a large number of troops to protect me and drive the gods away in order to turn the tide of disaster. I would like to give him a prize. I hereby declare Watson to be the next king of the Holy Dragon Kingdom, effective immediately. King Landhar III's voice was soft, but his words were like a cannonball striking the surface of the water, causing thousands of waves to crash. His words had 2 meanings. The first meaning was that it was Watson's army in the sky, whether the sea tribe or the dragons. While that was enough to make people fearful, Watson's strength as the kingdom's strongest genius was already terrifying. Who would dare to provoke such a genius? The second meaning was that King Landhar III would abdicate and hand the throne to Watson. That was even more perplexing. Even though the Holy Dragon Kingdom had the 3rd prince, King Landhar III would want to pass the throne to Watson. That was a little out of the question. Everyone looked up at the sky, perplexed. Many people subconsciously swallowed their saliva when they saw the dragons still circling in the sky, as well as the sea folks controlling the waves. They did not think it was impossible to figure out why King Landhar III made such a decision. Chapter 474. Banning the Church. It is not a problem, Your Majesty, if you want Watson to be the future king, but if you want to ban all the churches in the kingdom, the bishops and the priests will lose their jobs. One of the 4 major professions in the Holy Dragon Kingdom is that of priests. If so many people lose their jobs in such a short time, the kingdom will have a large number of unemployed people. Not only will it have an effect on the economy, but there is also the possibility of a riot. A white-haired old man emerged from the crowd not long after King Landhar III's voice faded. Makrotov, the old man, was the leader of the kingdom's civil officials, and other civil officials followed him. Hone led his army to King Landhar III and said, "Your Majesty, in order to save the people, I did not go to the sky to help you in time. It was my fault. Your Majesty, please punish me. Many people in the royal city were injured in the recent disaster as a result of our efforts. But no one has died as of yet. Concerning what Makrotov said just now, I do not think there is anything to be concerned about. After all, the gods will no longer protect us. Priests who have lost the gods' protection are equivalent to those who have lost their power. It is not advisable to continue to allow a group of powerless charlatans to siphon off the kingdom's money. Hone, you did not assist His Majesty in time when he was threatened in the sky just now. Instead, you aided the citizens. Is His Majesty's life not as important to you as the lives of ordinary people? You immediately came to oppose our proposal now that His Majesty has returned safely. I believe you want His Majesty to die and that kingdom to be destroyed." Some of the civil officials mocked and ridiculed Hone. The kingdom's civil officials and generals were already at odds with one another. Hone did nothing to assist in the great disaster that had occurred in the capital. That made them even angrier. Of course, His Majesty is more important than the average person. However, as the capital's general, it is my duty to protect the capital. His Majesty has given me that order. Even if he were in danger, His Majesty said that we would not let the capital fall. What's wrong with me obeying His Majesty? On the other hand, you didn't do anything when His Majesty was in danger. Instead, you approach His Majesty and say a bunch of meaningless things. I believe you are the ones who do not wish the best for the Holy Dragon Kingdom." Hone appeared solemn, but in his heart, he felt helpless. He also wanted to protect King Landhar III, but he knew the king did not need his protection. Furthermore, King Landhar III was not coerced into flying. Rather, he flew up into the sky on his own. His intention was to use the gods to carry out a plan. Hone was unaware of the specifics. All he knew was that King Landhar III appeared to have failed. How can you say that, Hone? How can you understand the harm if the church was banned, you short-sighted man? The ramifications would undoubtedly be far greater than the previous demonist church incident. Hone and the civil servants were having a heated debate. King Landhar III coughed and interrupted the two sides just as they were about to continue. King Landhar III covered his face with his hand and wore a pained expression after the two groups of people turned their gazes to him. "Quit arguing. I understand that outlawing the church will result in many unemployed people in the Holy Dragon Kingdom, which is not a good thing. However, what can I do?" King Landhar III raised his gaze to the heavens. "I am already old, and I have just been terrified by the gods' business. I am not sure how much longer I will be able to live. That kingdom will eventually belong to Watson." After a brief pause, King Landhar III returned his gaze to the sky. "I can only ban the church. Is there anything else I can do? Are you being coerced, Your Majesty?" "Blink if you were being coerced," Makrotov could not help but say, puzzledly. When he saw King Landhar III's actions, Sylvan, who was standing beside him, said, "King Landhar III, do not use such deceptive tactics to entice those ministers. What are you doing?" When they saw King Landhar III's actions, they would subconsciously believe Watson had done something wrong. "Do not be so cruel, Lord Sylvan. I know I was wrong. I will send someone to announce that the church will be closed down." King Landhar III clenched his fists and looked terrified. The ministers, as well as the people on the streets nearby, were all in a frenzy after his words. His Majesty is so terrified of the border count that he actually listens to him. Didn't you say His Majesty despises the border count? There is only one way for such a situation to occur, and that is if His Majesty is threatened. I have already said that His Majesty has no reason to pass the throne to Watson while the third prince is still alive. Watson must have used the army to threaten His Majesty. Even if Watson is the most brilliant genius in the kingdom and commanded a massive army, he can't accomplish such a feat. The royal family owns the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Why would a stranger like him want to join in the fun? Perhaps the deaths of the two princes are also connected to him. He must have used a despicable method to become the king. That is something I completely disagree with. For a brief moment, many people began to slander Watson, revealing common hatred. They had recently survived an earthquake and lava eruption in the royal city. Everyone was in a state of rage. Initially, they were enraged at the gods who had caused it. However, thanks to the astute leadership of King Landhar III, their fury was directed at Watson. Who will be the next king of the kingdom? We are adamantly opposed to Watson becoming king. And we cannot agree on a church ban. My father is a bishop. What will our family eat if he loses his job? The voices around them gradually became more audible. Sylvan, who knew what King Landhar III was thinking, could not take it anymore. With an angry expression on his face, he reached out and grabbed King Landhar III's gold-embroidered collar and said, "Friar, you be ****, take back what you just said. Sylvan, you no longer address me as the king. Aren't you being rude? Do you want to go to war with me?" King Landhar III wore a blank expression on his face as he leaned in close to Sylvan's ear, whispering. Then he cocked his head back, his face twisted into a panic. "The border guards are going to attack me. Men, protect me. Lord Sylvan, I know you are a strong man, but please let go of His Majesty, or I will not be polite to you." "The border will not be spared if anything happens to His Majesty," Hone said. The soldiers behind him simultaneously drew their swords, and their combat aura whistled. The generals, as well as the civil servants, gave Sylvan a wary look. Sylvan gritted his teeth, sensing the discontent in the people's hearts. He really wanted to punch King Landhar III, but he knew that he would fall for King Landhar III's trick if he did. Laughter erupted from the sky just as he was feeling anxious and considering a countermeasure. "Your Majesty, I have not seen you in a long time, but it looks like your place has grown so lively. This has far exceeded my expectations. Everyone seems to be debating whether or not to outlaw the church. On that point, I will respond to everyone. The church will not be shut down, and all bishops and priests will retain their positions." Everyone looked up to see Watson, accompanied by a few powerful dragons, seafolk, and angels, as they slowly landed in the royal city. Chapter 475. The Holy Dragon Kingdom's New God. "Watson, you said that you would not ban the church. Do you consider yourself the ruler of this kingdom? Now that the gods are fighting each other and wreaking havoc on the kingdom, they will no longer protect it. The priests will lose their power if the gods do not protect them. Do you want those powerless people to remain priests?" The civil officials were the first to question Watson after hearing his words. The civil officials wanted to know what Hone said when he refuted them. Hone's words made sense, even if they did not want to admit it. Even if they banned the church or allow it to grow, it would not solve the problem. It was a difficult problem that neither side was able to solve. "I do not consider myself the ruler of this kingdom. I am not that proud of myself." Watson waved his hand, and a childlike smile appeared on his face. "Do not worry, everyone. Pay attention. I propose that the church not be banned because doing so would cause a large number of professionals to lose their strength. However, I disagree with maintaining faith in the seven gods. Because if we continue to worship the seven gods, today's incident will occur again sooner or later. I propose for the church members to believe in someone else." "Who?" Watson pointed to himself. "Me." "What?" Everyone in the room was taken aback when they heard Watson's words. They did not react right away. If Watson had come with a god's recommendation, it would have at least stabilized the situation, even if it would not solve the problem of gods doing whatever they wanted in the mortal world. What exactly did that mean? Did Watson want to become the kingdom's god? Watson had just stated that he was not a proud man, but he also wished to become a god. Was that not a sign of arrogance? "Young Master Watson, from what I understand, those who can become a god must have the strength of a god. Only then will they be able to absorb the faith and send divine power to assist those in need. Do you have that kind of strength?" Hone's eyes narrowed as he asked softly. "I do. I would not have made that suggestion if I did not have it." Watson nodded and smiled. "Everyone, I want to be the Holy Dragon Kingdom's new god, replacing the seven gods in the church. This is an order, not a request. I am directing everyone to adhere to my plans. I have nothing to oppose because young Master Watson has said so." Makrotov stepped back and returned to the group of civil servants. All of the civil officials remained silent and agreed. On the other hand, no generals objected either. It seemed as if whatever Watson did was right and proper. Since no one has any doubts about my plan, I will announce it to the various churches. I will tell them to erect my statue and worship me as soon as possible. At the same time, disseminate this information throughout the kingdom. Watson motioned with his hand. The generals, led by Hone, bowed respectfully and left to make preparations. No one looked back at King Landhar III as they walked away. King Landhar III grimaced. An illusory chesspiece emitting starlight appeared in Watson's chest. Watson was regarded as the world's chesspiece due to his role as the human race chesspiece. He did not require any titles. There was no way to go against what Watson said as long as he was a human. Even King Landhar III trusted Watson's words instinctively. Watson turned his head and looked at him as if sensing his gaze. His smile widened, and there was a tinge of relaxation in it. He seemed to be telling the king that he would have a way to check whatever trick the king would play. King Landhar III sighed and turned to walk toward the palace. I am sorry, Watson, but I am a little tired. I will return to the palace to get ready for other matters. I will reorganize the church and leave the task of constructing a faith to you. You can rest assured, Your Majesty. I can still accomplish such a simple task as establishing a new faith. I hope you will pay more attention to other matters in the kingdom and avoid making any further errors. Otherwise, I will have to assist you. I can do it. King Landhar III turned around and walked out of the street after exchanging a few simple words with Watson. His back was much more hunched than before, and he appeared lonely. Conspiracies and tricks were sometimes rendered useless in the face of absolute power. King Landhar III had heard that saying for a long time, but he had only just truly understood it. Sylvan remained silent after exchanging glances with Watson. Instead, he quickly followed King Landhar III and resumed his duties. When King Landhar III left, the people around Watson dispersed and began to carry out his orders. The original statues were soon toppled, and word of a new statue spread throughout the capital. Magical tools spread like wildfire throughout the kingdom. In the cathedral, Bishop, His Majesty has just sent us an order to demolish the statues and replace them with new ones. He wants to change our faith in the 7 gods to Watson. Watson is only a kingdom genius, not a god, a priest said while standing in the hall where they worshipped the statues. Isn't it a blasphemy to believe in Watson? Rather, we should resign from the priesthood and pursue another career to cultivate again. The Holy Dragon Kingdom's frequent changes have posed a significant challenge to the priests. Their unwavering faith in the gods had shifted as well. If the gods could not bring them happiness, it was understandable that they lost their faith in them. According to what I have heard, Watson was the one who issued the order. And His Majesty and all of the ministers have agreed to it. I have to say that Watson's plan to become a god is far too audacious. What should we do now, Your Eminence? Another priest said. What else can we do? It doesn't matter if it was Watson's idea or not because His Majesty and the ministers have agreed to it. Demolish the remaining sculptures and convert them to a statue of Watson. The bishop sighed. Those priests could change their professions and stop worshipping the gods, but he had dedicated his entire life to the gods. It took him a long time to rise to the position of bishop. After just one battle, the gods were no longer protecting the kingdom. His life would be ruined if he did not find a new faith. The more he had, the more afraid he was of losing it. That was his state of mind. What kind of God would treat us devout believers so casually? The bishop said with gritted teeth as he stared at the 5 statues that had already collapsed in the hall in front of him, as well as the remaining 2 statues of the goddess of shadow and potion and the statue of the time traveler. They had fought for their own selfish desires, almost destroying the capital. They are worse than a human. Rather than having faith in such gods, I might as well find a random faith that will protect my position. With that in mind, and seeing the 2 priests beside him remained motionless, the red-robed bishop grabbed the solid wooden chair that had been placed in the great hall. He walked up to the statues and smashed them to pieces. Under the gazes of the 2 priests, the 2 sculptures shattered into a pile of dregs, emitting a dull cracking sound. Neither of the sculptures reacted at all during the process. It was as if they had unspokenly agreed to that result. The bishop threw his chair away and knelt on the ground. I want to repent to the sky, he said as he clasped his hands together. I had believed in the wrong God, and it almost destroyed my home. That was due to my lack of knowledge. Fortunately, the sky provided me with a new direction. I am willing to change my mind and believe in young Master Watson. He is everything to me from now on. I shall love him more than I love myself. The bishop has truly come to trust Watson. I have a feeling the bishop is about to go insane, smashing the god's statue with his own hands. I wonder if he will face the god's wrath. The two priests looked at the bishop as he recited the prayer to Watson, their eyes filled with pity. They did not want to leave the church and go without work, but they also did not want to pray to a 12 or 13-year-old child. Praying to a teenager was not only embarrassing but also pointless. It would be strange if there were any benefits to praying to a child. When they were all thinking the same thing, a bright light burst out from the red-robed bishop's body as he prayed. The bishop's body erupted with a powerful force. The force changed in midair. It transformed into a pupil-less eye at times, and a lively green ball of light in the shape of the world tree at others. Finally, two waves of energy changed in midair and a diamond tear aura encircled the red-robed bishop's body. It developed into a storm. The two priests were blown away by the powerful storm, and they hugged the stone pillar in the hall tightly. They were not taken aback, but they did appear stunned. What is going on? After praying, the bishop stood up in front of them. His body straightened, and the wrinkles on his face faded significantly. I can feel my power increasing as I progress from peak gold tier to diamond tier. After praying, I feel as if I have made a connection with Watson, and a vast amount of knowledge has been transferred to me from Watson. That feeling is similar to when I prayed to the gods and received their blessings, but it is much stronger. Watson can accept our faith and do the same thing as the gods. It is not impossible for him to dethrone the gods and become the church's new god. The church is saved. Chapter 476. The King of Angels. Watson can absorb faith and bestow powerful strength on others, is that correct? After hearing the bishop's words, the two priests, who had thought Watson was exaggerating, exchanged glances. They still did not believe Watson possessed the ability to replace the 7 gods. However, they were hesitant after seeing the bishop's body exude a power that was clearly beyond their comprehension. One of them clenched his teeth and knelt on the ground, beginning to pray. I am willing to put my faith in Watson. Following his prayer, a layer of platinum-tier powerful aura appeared on his body. A blazing flame domain appeared beneath his body with a casual movement of his hand, fire elemental laws. Only platinum-tier elites can wield this power. You should know that even though I have mastered platinum-tier moves, I am only at silver tier. Oh my goodness, it turns out that worshipping Watson can actually grant us power. Furthermore, that power is far greater than when we worship the gods. Tell the other priests about it right away, so they do not have to leave. Even though their tiers had not improved, the two priests felt that the power in their bodies had increased significantly. They rushed out of the church, ecstatic. Similar incidents occurred throughout the capital and gradually spread to other cities in the surrounding area. Watson, the mastermind behind it all, was standing atop a bell tower in the capital, looking down. That bell tower was one of the tallest structures in the capital. The guards usually sounded the capital's alarm there. Watson squinted his eyes comfortably as he looked down. A thick layer of faith-filled light covered his body, and the aura of faith grew denser and denser. Standing on top of the clock tower, it felt like he was amid the high and mighty divine kingdom. Initially, Watson's strength had increased by leaps and bounds due to his understanding of the sovereign tier as he rose to the peak of the diamond tier. However, with the absorption of faith, his strength was still improving. After it was issued, the people of the various churches attempted to follow the order to replace the gods. The number of people who believed in him increased dramatically. The source of chaos elemental magic contained in his soul had tens of thousands more souls at the time. The figure was still growing at an exponential rate. The Holy Dragon Kingdom was home to tens of millions of people, including millions of priests. If the speed were fast enough, it would only take a few days for those priests to believe in him, allowing him to gain the trust of millions. It would not be difficult to raise Watson's strength to the Starlight tier if he could use a few years to let the people of the Holy Dragon Kingdom become accustomed to that matter and make all the people believe in him as time passed. After all, even if he were a Starlight tier elite, gaining the trust of tens of millions of people would be extremely difficult. Watson focused his attention on Nia, who had followed him there but had never spoken. Watson felt his body's strength gradually improving and his mind becoming clearer. What do you think of the scenery here, Nia? It is very high and open. Yes, it is extremely high here. Only from a high vantage point can one see further. A qualified leader must always be in a position of authority and control the overall situation. Only then will he be able to avoid making mistakes. That was my realization after defeating King Landhar III. In the future, I may face even greater difficulties. I am confident that I will survive whatever challenges I face now. Watson inhaled deeply and flew to the fence outside the bell tower. He paced along the fence, hands behind his back. I would like to ask you a question, Nia. Which race were you before you reincarnated as a human? What happened to your race chess piece? Nia, as a god king, must have understood the race chess piece. Balder had previously implanted a race chess piece into his body. Nia must have had a solution if she had fully grasped the situation, but she remained silent. That puzzled him, and he wanted to know what was going on. In the past, I was in charge of the angel race. I have already used up my race chess piece to reincarnate as a human. I am afraid I have now abandoned it somewhere in the deity realm, Nia said. One must pay a high price to enter the mortal world from the deity world. Even if she had the strength of a god king, entering that world back then had used up a layer of her skin. So you were in charge of the angel race? Why do you want to become a human? Angels possessed more significant power than humans. Nia did not reincarnate into a stronger race. Instead, she chose to be born as one of the weak humans. That did not make any sense. Before I became God King, I was just a regular human. I was able to become an angel thanks to a god from the angel race. Unfortunately, after becoming one of the angels, I failed to fulfill my role as king of angels. As a result, the angel race was annihilated. I could not choose to be an angel, so I had to settle for a human who resembled an angel. Another reason for me to become a human is that I would have the ability to slow the angel race's molecules law. That ability can freeze everything, and it is very compatible with humans' molecular acceleration. That is why I aspire to be a human. Nia lowered her head respectfully and remained silent. She stole a glance at Watson after saying that. Master, are you unhappy with my methods? No, I am overjoyed. Nia, it turns out you are not just a sovereign tier elite but also the king of angels. That is even more potent than I anticipated. Previously, I used the potion to summon a slew of angels to mount creation. The existence of the angels demonstrates that the angels' race chess pieces have not been completely destroyed. After I reach Starlight Tier and enter the Divine Realm, I will assist you in locating the race chess pieces and fuse them into a complete chess piece, allowing you to reclaim your position as the King of Angels, Watson exclaimed with glee. He had only known that Nia was more powerful than him or anyone else in the world. He did not expect Nia's background to exceed his expectations. She was the King of Angels. He was ecstatic just thinking about it. He would not be afraid of being bullied after entering the deity world if Nia could regain her original strength. Watson had a grand scheme in his heart. There was one reason Nia had overlooked. The reason he chose her had a lot to do with the system he was using. The fusion system was a more advanced existence than the regular chess pieces. The fusion system revealed that he could fuse with the race chess pieces. If Watson ever reaches the sovereign tier, he would be able to plunder the energy of other races via the fusion system, making him the leader of those races. If Nia had not told him, Watson would never have brought it up on his own. It would be enough for him if Nia just stayed by his side. Nia, I would like you to accompany me to a location. He would have to take one step at a time. Watson needed to start accumulating little by little if he wanted to achieve the grand goal in his plan. Then he had to take the first step into the future. Yes, Master. Watson and Nia transformed into two streaks of light and flew toward the capital. The Abador family, the capital's largest potion-making manufacturing clan, was located in that direction. At the Abador family, the blessings of the gods and demons is too difficult to make. I have the raw materials His Majesty gave me, but I have tried nearly 1,000 times and still have not succeeded. This should be the final time. I am hoping it goes well. Rose stood in front of her laboratory, clutching a small bottle of emerald green water from the spring of life. She appeared tense. Balls of various colors were arranged on the table in front of her. Some were black, white, and gray, while others were round or square. They appeared strange, but none of them were the successful blessings of the gods and demons. Relax, Rose. Potion making is a trial and error process, and practice makes perfect. There are hundreds of complicated potions in that platinum tier formula, and the order and dosage of each drug are different. Under these conditions, any minor error will render the potion ineffective. That is perfectly normal. Stella, Rose's sister, crossed her arms and stood behind her to cheer her up. Their family's patriarch was also present in the laboratory, looking nervous. Do not worry, Rose. If we fail again, I will request more raw materials for the potion from His Majesty. I'm sure he will give us as much water from the spring of life that we need. Father, please stop talking. Aren't you putting even more pressure on your sister? Rose began a new attempt while Stella was complaining. She took the water from the spring of life and quickly pressed the herbs in the proportions specified in the formula. The juice was squeezed out and mixed to turn the potion into a black liquid. The potion then fused with the water, resulting in a black liquid. The two different liquids were mixed together. Then, the two liquids were separated by a clear line and divided into two halves. Rose's forehead began to sweat as a result of that. What she was doing then was only the first step in the process of creating the potion. She had to repeat the process, mixing thousands of drops of similar elixirs. Then, she would let the potions dry naturally. Even if she repeated the task 100 times, it might not be completed. While Rose was working, the voices of Stella and the head of the Abador family gradually faded, and the air became solemn. After about an hour, thousands of drops of black and white liquid appeared in front of the Rose, forming pearls, and she held a handful of powder in her hand. That powder was the fossilized remains of an ancient race known as the Hell Baron. She had to toss those fragments into the potion without destroying its shape. She had failed numerous times before that. I have to succeed this time. Rose Weiser sprinkled the Hell Baron's fossils into the black and white liquid while praying in her heart. The crystal clear liquid became turbid and began to move in an irregular pattern as if it contained activity. Thousands of water drops joined to form a round black and white ball. It was illuminated by a simple and uncomplicated light. It's a success. Rose stood up when the black and white ball appeared. It's a success. Wait a minute, let me check. Behind Rose, Stella, and the head of the Abador family, a slender arm snatched the blessings of the gods and demons from the table. The three people were taken aback. When they turned around, they saw that the owner of the slender arm was a lovely young lady dressed in a long black gown. She hesitated a little before swallowing the blessings of the gods and demons. No, when the head of the Abador family saw that, he nearly collapsed. The blessings of the gods and demons had the potential to grant people eternal life. He was already quite old, and his body had suffered as a result of dealing with potions all year. He desperately needed that potion. That was also why he urged Rose to accept it. He had tried thousands of times before succeeding, but the potion had been stolen by someone else. That nearly made him cry. Chapter 477. The Powerful Nia. I seem to recall seeing you somewhere before. Stella, Rose's second sister, stared at the girl who had taken the blessings of the gods and demons potion when the head of the Abador family looked as if he was about to cry. Her eyes widened as she realized who the girl was. She did not dare to confirm it. You are Miss Nia? Rose was the one who exclaimed and called out the name of the girl. Nia was the person who had taken the blessings of the gods and demons. Rose recognized Nia because they were Royal Academy students, and Nia was a Saint Laurent family genius who was well known in the capital. She had watched the match between Nia and Watson. That match had left an indelible imprint on her. Hello. Nia nodded. Are you Nia? Nia, the kingdom's second-ranked genius, was the strongest genius in the Saint Laurent family. At that moment, the Abador family's leader also reacted. He took a deep breath of cold air, and then his face became sad. Regardless of who you are, entering the Abador family's place so rashly and seeking the blessings of the gods and demons is not appropriate, is it? Rose, my daughter, has made that painstakingly. I have not even had the opportunity to eat it yet. It was no surprise that the Abador family's head was upset. The blessings of the gods and demons could transform a person into a platinum-tier angel. That kind of potion was extremely appealing to ordinary people. However, for a genius like Nia, the effect was not as strong. After all, even if Nia did not drink the potion, her strength was far above platinum tier. Why did she still go to the Abador family to steal the potion, despite her obvious strength? He could not figure it out. A tender voice came from outside the room just as he was perplexed. Master Robin, please accept my apologies. I was the one who asked Nia to consume the blessings of the gods and demons. Watson slowly entered the room. Stella and Rose Weiser's eyes lit up when they saw him. Then, Rose Weiser knelt on one knee, and Stella rushed to Watson's side, wrapping her arms around his shoulders, saying, "Watson, I have not seen you in 2 days. I heard you have been staying in the dragon lair and that you have enraged His Majesty. He even imprisoned you. When were you released? Is His Majesty relaxed now?" Watson's expression became strange as he looked at his arm, which was pressed against his shoulder. "I left the prison quite some time ago, Miss Stella. I just finished a massive battle with someone above the royal city's sky." "Didn't you know? A god-tier battle had erupted above the royal city. He even summoned the dragons, the seafolks, and the Black Moon Knights." Stella would not ask such a question if she saw that. "We stayed here after receiving the formula, we never left. Furthermore, this room has excellent sound insulation. There was a tremor in the laboratory just now, and it almost halted our work." "What happened outside?" Stella scratched her brow, her face expressionless. In response to her words, Watson's mouth twitched. It was insignificant. Stella's indifferent attitude toward the outside world was not appropriate for a person. However, as a potion maker, there was nothing wrong with Stella's behavior because she could only do her best by focusing all of her attention on one thing and ignoring the others. "Let's not get into that right now, Watson. Why did you make Miss Nia take the blessings of the gods and demons potion now? An elite at her level should not require that potion, right?" Stella asked as she pondered something. Watson remained silent. "Miss Stella, if you keep watching, you will know soon enough," he said, raising his chin. Following his words, everyone in the room, including Rose and Robin, the Abador family's patriarch, turned to face Nia. Tens of thousands of lights appeared suddenly behind Nia's back, drawing everyone's attention. 6 enormous white wings appeared. A glowing ring appeared above Nia's head not long after. It was no different than an angel who had accepted a god's or a demon's blessing. Stella was about to say that Nia's appearance was unremarkable when something strange happened. The original circle-shaped ring of light above Nia's head was suddenly dyed with a layer of golden light. Then, complicated patterns appeared on it, as well as golden energy walls. They merged to form a stunning floating crown. Nia's 6 white wings turned golden as well. The number of wings began to grow as well. The 6 massive wings were covered in tiny feathers. If one looked closely, one would notice that they were tiny golden wings. Some of the people who had used the blessings of the gods and demons were transformed into angels, but their wings were made of feathers. Nia's wings were made of even smaller wings. She appeared to have millions of wings covering her body. She could fly up into the sky with a light flap of her wings. "That does not appear to be the same as when I drank the potion. Miss Nia's aura is far too powerful to ignore. She is platinum tier, but she exudes a higher level of sophistication. Furthermore, I have the impression that I am submitting to Miss Nia." Stella's back was forced to sprout 6 pure white wings. Her wings could not be compared to Nia's, either in terms of magnificence or structure. At the same time, she felt oppressed by her bloodline. "Watson, I understand why you allowed Miss Nia to take Rose's potion. It looks like you understand it, Miss Stella, which is a good thing." Watson nodded and smiled. He allowed Nia to take the blessings of the gods and demons potion because Nia was originally of the angel race. She was the king of angels. Nia, unlike ordinary angels, would become the king of angels once she became an angel. Furthermore, Nia was originally at sovereign tier, but she was only at peak gold tier after being reincarnated as the child of God. Watson needed to boost Nia's power so she could demonstrate even more powerful strength. If Nia's sovereign tier served as a reservoir, then that body served as a valve. The lower the tier represented by the valve, the less water it was capable of releasing. Nia's strength was dozens of times stronger than before she had reached platinum tier. Watson was not sure if he could beat Nia in the future, but he was not a match for her right then. Stella nodded and said, "Watson, the reason you let Miss Nia take the potion is that Rose created a very powerful potion, right?" Not bad, Rose. Even if you only succeed once in 1,000 attempts, the potion you created has a stronger effect than the original. I believe that potion is no longer only platinum tier but diamond tier. Do you remember the sequence of your actions, Rosé? You must remember to write it down later. Perhaps we inadvertently improved that potion. Nia's effects after taking the potion differed from Stella's. Clearly, Nia's talent was not only superior to hers, but she was also more adaptable to the potion. It was because Rose's potion was more potent than what Watson had given them. Is that right? It has already slipped my mind. All I know is that I followed the recipe. Rose Weiser's hands moved to the position of her lower abdomen as Stella complimented her. Watson shook his head. He thought Stella truly understood it. He had not expected Stella to be incorrect, so he did not correct her. Nia, how do you feel? He asked Nia, who had transformed into the King of Angels. Are you still pleased with the gift I gave you? Nia's strength had been upgraded from gold to platinum tier thanks to a potion. That was a secondary consideration. The main point was that it had enabled Nia to obtain the body of an angel. As the former King of Angels, Nia would undoubtedly be more suited to an angel's body than a human's. Nia reached out her right hand and gently clenched it. The entire room appeared to have come to a halt. All energy factors, whether time or space, had gone silent. A layer of solid ice appeared in the center of the room, covering the walls and ceiling in an instant, freezing everything. Honorable Master, I am feeling great right now. After consuming that potion, my body is transformed into an angel of the highest level once more. Using molecular deceleration as an angel, it is possible to freeze starlight tier places. I could defeat all the people possessed by the 7 gods right now. Nia spoke without emotion, but her tone was gentle. That is great. The corners of Watson's mouth twitched. He would be safer if Nia grew stronger. That potion was merely a starter for Nia. He would devise a method to increase Nia's strength to a higher level. Robin struggled to move his feet, which had been frozen by the cold air, at the far end of the room. His expression became increasingly depressed. He had no idea that the potion was successfully refined but that its effect would exceed the original effect. It was a shame he did not eat it. However, Watson's decision was final, and he had no right to object. Watson gave them the prescription and the water from the spring of life. Furthermore, they had already announced that they were working for Watson. There was no reason for subordinates to steal from their superiors. Watson turned his head and looked at Rose as if sensing her emotions. Are those the failed potions, Rose? There was a pile of broken blessings of the gods and demons. Yes, young Master Watson. I have wasted so many materials. I have let you down. Rose approached the experiment table. She apologized with some embarrassment and waved her hands to cover up the scene behind her. It is all right. The mother of success is failure. Furthermore, those failures are not insignificant to me. Quote, Watson gently consoled her while waving his hand at the failed products. Fusion system, activate. Under everyone's astonished gazes, the potions transformed into light rays and fused in the air, transforming into round black and white potions that emitted an ancient light. The quantity was roughly half of the failed products. Chapter 478, A Potion Revolution. Congratulations, Master, on successfully fusing with the blessings of the gods and demons potions. You have received a complete blessings of the gods and demons potion. Hundreds of streams of light appeared in front of Watson as the voice rang in his ears. 1, 2, 3, 100 and 200 and 300 and 400. Stella's gaze was fixed on the potions that Watson had combined. She gulped. There were more than 400 potions in front of her. Rose Weiser had previously tried 1,000 times and only succeeded once. There were 999 failed products, and those failed products were turned into complete products at a 2-to-1 ratio. That ratio was unfathomable. It was the same as Watson conjuring up hundreds of blessings out of thin air. Those blessings appear to be real, but can the effect be the same? Stella could not help but inquire. She was perplexed as to whether the blessings of the gods and demons had the same impact as the real thing. After all, they were made from faulty materials. Perhaps Watson only made that potion appear to be the real thing on the surface. The essence of the potion could be very different. To make money, he might have intended to sell it as inferior to the genuine one. Master Robin, you will know if you try it. You have been supervising potion making in the Abador family for the past 2 days. I will give you the blessings of the gods and demons potion as a reward." Watson motioned with his hand. One of the potions he had just fused transformed into a stream of light and approached Robin. "I did not work too hard, young Master Watson. My daughter was the one who put in the most effort. I was only here to assist." "That potion." Robin gave a hesitant look halfway through his words. He had the same reservations as Stella. He had no idea whether the potion in front of him was poisonous. He could call a random servant to test the effect if Watson had not said anything. However, Watson had asked him to take it, so he was in a bit of a pickle. "What is the matter, Master Robin? Do you think there is a problem with the potion I made? If that is the case, I will bestow the blessings of the gods and demons on someone else." Watson extended his hand toward the blessings of the gods and demons. Just as he was about to take it back, Robin gritted his teeth and stuffed the potion into his mouth. "Young Master Watson, you have to be kidding. Why would I be skeptical of you?" Robin thought his relationship with Watson was more important than the effects of the potion. He would suffer a significant loss if Watson were unhappy. He swallowed the potion and closed his eyes nervously, fearful that his body would feel uneasy. Surprisingly, there was nothing awry about his body. On the contrary, an electric current passed through his body, causing every cell to become boiling hot, followed by an indescribable sense of comfort. Swoosh! A piercing sound was heard. 6 pure white wings appeared on Robin's back, and a halo appeared above his head. In addition, his body emitted a powerful platinum-tier aura. Robin's face revealed an ecstatic expression as he felt the surge of power in his body, looked at the angel wings that appeared on his back and raised his hand to touch the shapeless halo above his head. "That's right, that is a real potion. I have also turned into an angel." Initially, he was bothered by Nia stealing his potion. Furthermore, he had no idea how long it would take him to get the next one after she consumed that potion. He no longer had any hope to get the blessings of the gods and demons in the short term. He did not expect Watson to arrange for him to take the blessings of the gods and demons potion. He was grateful to Watson, but he was also taken aback. Immediately converting a large number of defective potions into genuine, usable potions. "What level is that?" Stella muttered to herself, her face expressionless. Rose Weiser, who had been a little happy because she had developed the blessings of the gods and demons, had also lost her joy at that moment. Watson could produce hundreds of times her output with a wave of his hand, so she could not be complacent just because she could create a platinum-tier potion. She was nowhere near that level. Rose decided that she would have to work hard to be useful to Watson. Watson said, "Master Robin, you have received the blessings of the gods and demons. My reason for coming here has essentially been fulfilled. I have to go now. I originally came to the Abador Manor for 2 reasons. One is to assist Nia in becoming an angel, and the other is to review your achievements and make sure that you can create the blessings of the gods and demons on your own. The Abador family's title as the kingdom's most powerful potion-making family is not in vain. I will give some of the remaining blessings of the gods and demons to your family members, and the rest will be sold on the market." "Thank you very much, young Master Watson. Could you please tell me how much that potion would cost?" On the surface, Robin expressed his gratitude, but his heart was sighing. He was not pleased with Watson's praise for the Abador family. The Abador family was already amazing if they could produce the blessings of the gods and demons, but what about Watson, who could create hundreds of the potions with a wave of his hand? Watson had previously stated that he was not good at making a potion. If he was not good at it, the Abador family's various potion makers might as well kill themselves. "I would sell it for 100,000 gold coins. 100,000 gold coins? Is it too much?" Watson frowned in response to Robin's exclamation. "No, young Master Watson, it is not too much, it is far too little." Robin shook his head and said, "A potion like that can transform a person into a platinum-tier angel, as well as give them eternal life. The price of 100,000 gold coins is far too low. Platinum tier plus everlasting life. That is a level that people aspire to but may never achieve in their lifetimes. As a result, they should have to earn a few lifetimes of gold coins to pay for it. Only then can it be considered a win rather than a loss. What you are saying makes sense. So, how much do you think that potion should fetch?" "At least 10 million gold coins." "Very well, then. A blessings of the gods and demons was worth 10 million gold coins. That was a much higher price than Watson had previously set. However, the patriarch of the Abador family clearly understood the kingdom's market better than Watson. Since he dared to set a price of 10 million gold coins, he could almost certainly guarantee that it would be sold. I had hoped for a high-end blessings of the gods and demons. After all, receiving the potion would grant one eternal life. That can't be consumed in large quantities because too many people would receive eternal life, and the world would be unable to bear it, Watson grumbled to himself. Humans were a rapidly reproducing race. He could not imagine what the world would be like if they continued to give birth to immortals. It would most likely take less than 100 years for the world to become a place where no one would die. I will let you handle the sale of the blessings of the gods and demons. I will just take a cut of the profits when the time comes. Aside from that potion, I also have a few new formulas. I would like the Abador family to assist in developing them and selling them after the blessings of the gods and demons. The Book of Wisdom appeared as Watson spoke, and the pen and paper appeared out of thin air. He scribbled quickly on the paper while holding the quill pen. The formulas were soon recorded. They were formulas from the dragon lair. He quickly jotted 10 potions and handed them to Robin, who examined its contents and read aloud. Super Strength Potion, Super Speed Potion. What tier are these potions? Those are Platinum Tier potions. Platinum Tier? Robin's eyes widened as he looked at Watson in disbelief. Are you sure those potions are all Platinum Tier, young Master Watson? Initially, he thought it would suffice to have the blessings of the gods and demons. After all, a single Platinum Tier potion could feed the Abador family for several lifetimes. He did not expect Watson to give him new formulas after they had developed the blessings of the gods and demons. He did not dare to think about what kind of sensation it would cause in the kingdom if so many Platinum Tier potions were developed. These are 10 sets of those formulas, Watson, 10 Platinum Tier potion formulas. Where did you get them from? Stella moved closer to Robin and asked, knowing that there were no potions higher than peak gold tier in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Furthermore, the 10 potion formulas Watson gave her were all new to her. It was difficult to imagine a person mastering so many magical formulas simultaneously. It had been a cold winter. I fell into an ancient ruin by accident while out at the border. There was a lot in that ruin. There was not only the spring of life water but also many potion formulas. Watson retorted in his usual defensive manner. I almost forgot to mention that not all of those potions are Platinum Tier. 6 of them are Platinum Tier, and the other 4 are Diamond Tier. Diamond Tier? Robin meditated on that word. Even a Platinum Tier potion was too much for him to bear, let alone a Diamond Tier potion. He had never seen or heard of an elixir of that caliber before. His eyes rolled backward before he fell to the ground with a plop. Even though he had just become an angel, he could not withstand such a powerful blow. Father, are you okay, Father? Rose and Stella were taken aback. They dashed over to Robin's side to check on him. Meanwhile, Watson and Nia said their goodbyes and left the Abador family. The kingdom is about to embark on a potion revolution. I am confident in the Abador family's abilities. Now, I will pay a visit to the Campbells. I have not had a proper conversation with Geraint and Lubin since they arrived in the capital. I will treat them to a banquet. I have a task for them to complete anyway. Watson took a deep breath as he stood at the manor entrance. His eyes flickered as he strode toward his next destination. Chapter 479. Resurrection of the Dead. At the Campbell mansion, Father Augustus had left. He had not yet returned. Furthermore, there was a fierce battle in the sky just now, and he seemed to be involved. Should we send some people to look for him? The Campbell family's higher-ups were holding a meeting in a hall. The meeting was attended by Armand, McGee, Newman, Freya, and the other older family members. More than 10 people were gathered at the round table. Newman's face was filled with concern, and he spoke in a worried tone. The battle in the sky had lasted half an hour. The royal city had been torn apart even before the battle began. The Campbells were not spared either. A few cracks had ripped the mansion into several pieces. Many people were injured when their houses collapsed. The Campbell family had been too preoccupied with rescuing their family members to notice the battle in the sky. Fortunately, it did not take long for the cracks in the ground in the houses to return to their original state. However, Augustus had vanished. That had caused Newman a great deal of concern. Looking for Augustus? McGee snorted. He was sitting not far away from him. I am not sure how many changes have occurred in the Campbell family because of Augustus in the last few days. Every time Augustus went out, he caused trouble, and at one point, he even provoked the gods. There are rumors that the kingdom's 7 gods are fighting each other for the sake of competing for faith and that they nearly tore the royal city apart. If Augustus dared to get involved in such a matter, then he deserved to die. What are you on about, McGee? Newman locked his gaze on his older brother. McGee did not want to be outdone. What is the matter, Newman? Is there something wrong with what I said? Augustus is either in trouble or on his way to getting into trouble. Augustus owed 900 holy relics after losing a bet with Watson at the Royal Academy. I am curious if you intend to ask the family to pay for that. It is all gibberish. Eldest brother, how can you believe those rumors? Newman's pride weakened significantly. He had heard about it as well, but he pretended not to know because he had no way of paying for those 900 holy relics. Let us not get into that right now. The Campbells have been humiliated by Augustus' performance in the Dragon Knight recruitment process. We had high hopes for him, but instead of becoming a Dragon Knight, he became the kingdom's laughing stock. Forget about that, he even locked himself up after coming home, and when he came out, he had transformed into a woman. Why can't we scold him? McGee's voice became increasingly animated as he spoke. He could not have children due to physical reasons, and Augustus was regarded as the Campbell family's heir due to his exceptional talent. However, Augustus' performance had deteriorated to the point where he was behaving like a psychopath. McGee, who had been displeased with him for a long time, could not take it any longer. We're all family here. Do not argue. Can't you just sit down and speak amiably? At that precise moment, a slightly plump man seated at the far end of the table spoke cautiously. Who are you to speak here? I am speaking with my older brother. What's it to you? When they heard the fat man's words, Newman and McGee frowned and looked at the man. They fought because they were members of the main family. They had the right to do so. They had never seen the person at the far end of the table before. What right did he have to scold them? I am Lubin. I am from the border. The fat man formally introduced himself. Newman's expression darkened as soon as he heard that. He had a theory as to why his son Augustus was becoming increasingly depressed. Watson was from the border, which gave him a negative impression of Lubin, also from the border. How can a guy from the border speak at this meeting? Don't divide the family. Get lost. This is no place for you. I don't mind sending you out if you don't leave. It doesn't look like your family educated you in etiquette. I can assist them. Newman snorted coldly and turned his wrath on Lubin. Master Newman, please relax. Lubin is new to the Campbell household and is unfamiliar with the house rules. I am sure I will teach him a good lesson later. In any case, Master Newman, do not get so worked up. After being chastised by Newman, the people around Lubin were enraged. On the surface, they could only smile at him. While scolding Lubin, they consoled Newman and the others. Lubin had been invited to the meeting because he had demonstrated great strength when he arrived in the capital. He had also brought many valuable items and was even invited to the royal palace. They had been questioning Lubin about his life at the border for the past few days. He had shown off his wealth at the border. He had even given some of his tools to his family members, raising his status within the family. Initially, Lubin was there to see his family members. The ignorant man had not expected to get involved in a disagreement with Newman. As a result, many of the higher-ups from the branch families were dissatisfied with him. They discussed not bringing him there the next time. There were 6 branch families in the Campbell family, 7 including the main family. Those branch families were the results of the Campbell family's early political marriages to expand their influence. Members of the branch family could not become the patriarch because their bloodline was not pure enough. They had been suppressed for years by people from the main family. They were no different than their subordinates to the main family. If the main family members wanted to kill them, they would have to pinch their noses and bear with it. I feel as if the air in the room has become dirty after attending a meeting with such a person. Furthermore, despite being a Campbell family member, I heard that Lubin had joined the border count. Isn't this an act of betrayal? Lubin remained silent as those around him chastised him. However, Newman continued to speak about that. Armand, who sat at the head of the table, had remained quiet. He did not get involved. Of course, that is not regarded as a betrayal. Master Newman, I hope you will refrain from being so aggressive. Why don't you go out if you don't like the environment here? They heard a young and tender voice. Who dares to address me in such a manner? Newman took a quick look around. That voice was not Lubin's. Instead, it felt very familiar to him. As he turned his head around to look for the source, the others did as well, and they saw a youth dressed in a long white robe. His hands were behind his back, and he had a confident smile on his young face. As he walked in, his blue eyes were filled with all kinds of stars. Watson, Newman gritted his teeth. How dare you come here? Young Master Watson, he says. Lubin stood up and walked in front of Watson, respectfully kneeling on one knee. The Campbell family's higher-ups' expressions immediately darkened. They were surprised that Lubin had bowed toward Watson. They would not invite that man to another meeting. Do not be rude to the guests, Newman. Armand, who had been resting with his eyes closed, abruptly opened them. He supported his chin with his hands crossed. Why have you come to the Campbell family, Watson? I have two pieces of news to share with you. The first is good news, and the second is bad news. Which one would you like to hear first? There's no need for that, Watson. Is it a good or bad thing? How is that relevant to us? Newman appeared dissatisfied. Even Freya, one of the main family's 3 siblings, followed suit. Watson, the Campbell mansion is not where you can do whatever you want. You've caused the Campbell family to be in such a miserable state, and yet you still dare to come here. Augustus and Watson were not the only ones fighting in the sky. And Augustus has gone missing. Maybe it is because of Watson. The Campbell family's older family members on both sides of the conference table debated it animatedly. Every single one of them looked at Watson with a hostile expression on their face. Everyone, please be quiet. Armand knocked on the table with his hand. Everyone in the room calmed down. Then, he turned to Watson and said, Watson, speak. What news did you bring? I would prefer to hear the bad news first. The bad news is that Augustus had died in the battle to protect His Majesty, who the gods threatened. Watson's words resounded like a thunderclap, exploding within the Campbell mansion. What do you mean, he died protecting His Majesty? Watson, you murdered my son. Return my son's life to me. Newman pounced on Watson like an enraged lion, baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. Stay away from young Master Watson. Lubin raised his head while kneeling on the ground. 6 wings spread from his back, and as his wings flapped, a powerful platinum tear aura enveloped the entire house, causing Newman to take 2 steps backward subconsciously. Blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. You scumbag, you are in league with Watson, as expected. My son is dead, and I no longer want to live. Today, I am going to kill all of you. I don't care who wants to stop me. Newman's eyes were bloodshot as he crazily took a step toward Watson. Everyone in the room was moved, but no one stopped him. The corners of Armand's mouth twitched. You said that there were 2 pieces of news. You've given us the bad news. So, what is the good news? The good news is that I can bring Augustus back to life. Watson spoke clearly and enunciated each word. Newman had been approaching him erratically, but when he heard those words, he froze like a statue. What do you mean, Watson? A resurrection? Can you bring the dead back to life? Why didn't you say so earlier? If someone else had claimed to be able to bring the dead back to life, Newman would have laughed and thought that person was insane. However, it was Watson. He had witnessed Watson's various abilities firsthand, and he knew what a terrifying monster Watson was. If Watson said he could do it, then he might be able to do it. After the battle, the Campbell family had already sent people to look for Augustus. However, they had returned empty-handed. Naturally, he had also dispatched some of his men to look for Augustus. He was mentally prepared for Augustus to be in danger after considering everything that had happened recently. He still sobbed when he heard Watson's bad news. However, Watson had given him hope after he had broken down. Since that was the case, he should not have said anything about Augustus' death. Was he playing with Newman's emotions? As I previously stated, I have good and bad news for you. Master Armand requested the bad news first, so I delivered it. Watson shook his head. Stop playing word games with me, Watson. You claim to be able to resurrect Augustus. I am not sure I believe what you said, Armand said, his face filled with disbelief. That is all I have to say. I will bring Augustus back to life in front of everyone. Watson appeared unconcerned. A chess piece glowed with starlight on his chest. Everyone's hearts tightened the moment that chess piece appeared. They felt as if Watson held the key to their fate. Chapter 480, Human Creation. Activate the race chess piece, Human Creation. Watson reached out and grabbed the chess piece that floated out of his chest. The chess piece danced slightly in his hand, and light poured out and landed on the ground. A ball of light squirmed and transformed into a human figure. During that process, green life energy burst out of Watson's body. The life energy drew the symbol of a world tree on his back and poured into the human figure that appeared on the ground. The energy fused, first the bones, then the flesh and blood. A naked man appeared in front of everyone. He had fiery red hair, and his face was the same as Augustus. He looked proud and domineering. The color of his eyes was different. They were not dark red but emerald green, and there was confusion in them. What's going on? Why am I here? Quote, Augustus, who had been resurrected, raised his hands and looked at himself, somewhat at a loss. He remembered he had been forced to lay eggs for a day, which weakened his body. The king had sent a woman named Sidi to visit him and had even fed him some black liquid. After that, his consciousness faded. Did the king send someone to kill him? Even though Augustus could not remember anything after his body was invaded, the memory fragments that occasionally flashed through his mind reminded him of something. Augustus has been resurrected. What kind of ability is that? The people in the room were taken aback by Augustus' appearance. What surprised them the most was not the fact that Augustus had been resurrected but that his body was no longer in the transformed puppet form. Instead, he had returned to his original form. Augustus' body was full of muscles, and it was clear that he was flesh and blood. After recovering Augustus' body, Watson stopped the transfer of life energy from his body, and the human chess piece returned to his chest. As the controller of the human race chess piece, Watson could create humans. He could create different humans according to his preferences and perspectives. Strictly speaking, the Augustus he created was no longer the original Augustus. He was just another person who had the same memories, experiences, and personality as Augustus. Whether the two completely the same people could be considered as one person was a controversial topic. At least to the Campbell family, Augustus had been resurrected. Wait a minute, what if this Augustus is a fake illusion? Or if Watson simply used magic to imitate Augustus' appearance, but in essence, that person is not my child. While the others were exclaiming in shock, Newman approached Augustus and stretched his right hand outward, wanting to touch Augustus' cheek. However, he still held it in and turned his head to question Watson. Humans were like that. When they could not see hope, they would try their best to hold on to it. However, when they saw hope, they would start to question whether it was real or not. Augustus, your father thinks that you are not real. Prove it to him. Quote, Watson smiled slightly. The confusion in Augustus' eyes disappeared when he heard his words. He frowned. Watson, so it was you who saved me. Don't think that you can order me around just because you saved me. Augustus shifted his gaze to Newman. His gaze became conflicted. Father, I'm Augustus. What can I do to prove that I'm not a fake? Say a few things that only the Campbell family knows. All right. Augustus nodded and cleared his throat. In order to defeat Watson, I was modified by grandfather in time. The flesh that was cut from my body was not thrown away. Instead, grandfather sealed it in a container and placed it in the second flower bed in the courtyard. That was considered a secret. That's right, only Augustus and I know about that. Armand nodded as well. The flesh cut from Augustus' body should have been disposed of. Armand was reluctant to bury Augustus' flesh in the second flower bed. Perhaps it was because Augustus' body contained a strong power. The flowers were in full bloom in the garden where Augustus' flesh was buried. That doesn't count. Maybe a gardener saw the flesh buried under the flowers when he was trimming them, or maybe someone secretly saw father burying the flesh there. Newman was a little moved, but he still shook his head. In that case, let's talk about you, father. You have a mistress outside, the wife of a certain count in the capital. That manor was bought in my name, so I went there once. Although you and mother appear loving, I know that you have a hobby. You like other people's wives. Augustus spoke slowly, and the atmosphere in the meeting room immediately changed after he finished speaking. Many of the higher-ups cast their gazes on Newman with strange expressions. Newman, is that true? You like other people's wives? The Count's wife? I did not expect you to have such a hobby. If this matter were to spread, it would be another major scandal in the kingdom. Don't listen to that fake in front of you. No, don't listen to Augustus' nonsense. Quote, Newman's face alternated between green and ashen. He denied it, but he called the young man Augustus. I'm aware of a portrait of Aunt Freya in Uncle's room. Once, he stripped naked in front of the portrait and did something indescribable. He gave me 1,000 gold coins and told me not to tell anyone about that, Augustus continued. Brother McGee, is there such a thing? You know, I have a husband. Freya looked at her eldest brother, shame and anger appearing on her face. Nonsense, how is such a thing possible? DMN it, Newman. Quickly shut your son up. McGee gritted his teeth, his expression was furious. He slapped the table and stood up. At that moment, Augustus gave a few more tidbits about the Campbell family. Just as the higher-ups of the Campbell family were feeling uneasy, Augustus suddenly changed the topic to Armand. As for grandfather, I also know one thing. Wait a moment, Augustus. Without a doubt, you are the genius of our Campbell family, Augustus. We don't need to confirm it anymore. I believe everyone has no objections, right? Without waiting for Augustus to finish speaking, Armand hurriedly interrupted him. As the head of the Campbell family, it would be too embarrassing if Augustus exposed him. At that moment, after he finished speaking, all the higher-ups of the Campbell family nodded. That must be Augustus. It's definitely him. They did not want Augustus to expose more things. He had given away too many of their secrets. The person in front of them was Augustus. Watson, you came to us and resurrected Augustus. We owe you a favor. What do you want in return? Armand tried to conceal his awkwardness. His fingers tapped on the table as he asked with a serious expression. Watson and the Campbell family did not have a good relationship. However, Watson had revived, so it was impossible for him not to return the favor. Well, I want to choose a person to become the next head of the Campbell family. What do you think? Watson placed his finger on his lips and revealed a half-smile. His words made many of the higher-ups in the Campbell family look troubled. They were prepared to refuse him. They wanted to appoint someone in their family to become the future head of the Campbell family. There was only one person Watson could nominate. Many people turned their gaze to Lubin. If Lubin became the head of the Campbell family, Watson would control their family in the future. Watson, forgive me for not agreeing to your request. Armand did not hesitate at all as he rejected Watson's request. Make a new request. Watson smiled as if he had expected that result. Since that's the case, I'll change my request. Since I resurrected Augustus, the Campbell family shall give me another 100 holy relics for that. Together with the 900 holy relics that Augustus owed me, the Campbell family will need to give me 1,000 holy relics. 1,000 holy relics? All the holy relics in the entire Holy Dragon Kingdom combined were not that much. The Campbell family's higher-ups were complaining in their hearts, while Augustus frowned. Watson, do you think I'm worth 100 holy relics? Augustus, stop talking. Newman stepped forward and pulled Augustus back toward him. If Augustus continued to talk, Watson would increase the price, and the Campbell family would have to pay even more. Then let's put it this way. I'll give you 1 week to pay me that. Lubin, let's go. Anyway, they don't want you to stay in the meeting. They even said that you've polluted the air here. Let them continue their discussion. Watson turned around and walked out. Lubin followed closely behind him. Before that, he glanced at the people in the room. At that moment, no one dared to mock him. Instead, they looked cautious, and that scene made him sneer, and he left without looking back. On the one hand, he had returned to the Campbell family to show off the benefits he had obtained from Mount Creation. On the other hand, he also wanted to improve the lives of his family members. That group of people, led by Newman, actually criticized him during the meeting. So, he had nothing to say. It was much better to stay by Watson's side than to stay there. Initially, when Watson asked for 1,000 holy relics, he could still help to intercede. After that, he could not be bothered to care about it. Newman, the meeting here is not suitable for you. No need to stay. Go and wait outside. There's also the cost of Reviewed Augustus. The Campbell family will not help you pay for that. Think of a way to solve that. After Watson left, Armand immediately waved at Newman as if he did not like Newman. Yes, father. Newman gritted his teeth and braced himself to agree. He brought Augustus and walked out of the room. The higher-ups looked at Newman with pity, even though they knew that Newman had caused the Campbell family to suffer the loss of 1,000 holy relics. In addition, he had an affair with the Count's wife. Armand could no longer protect him, and the prestige Newman had built up after decades of hard work in the Campbell family had collapsed in an instant. The same thing happened with another family in the royal city. Chapter 481. The Ptolemy family's meeting. At the Ptolemy family's estate in the royal city. The Ptolemy family was different from the Campbells and the Saint Laurent family. Due to the lack of geniuses in the younger generation and the fact that the Ptolemy family's primary industry was sea transportation, the Ptolemy family's home was at the floating city, while their branch family was in the royal city. Daniel, the head of the Ptolemy family, was sitting in front of a round table in the branch family's manor, holding a teacup and sipping tea. He was listening to the branch family members' report on what had happened in the capital that day. Master Daniel, young Master Casey recently competed in the Royal Academy's competition in the capital, and he is now a well-known genius throughout the kingdom. In addition, young Master Casey obtained a dragon and rose to the rank of a dragon knight. I am familiar with young Master Casey's dragon. They are tall and powerful. My heart trembles just looking at them. The Ptolemy family has always ranked last among the three great families. With young Master Casey's great accomplishments, our future development may not be inferior to Campbell's and the Saint Laurent family. The branch family members, led by a white-haired branch family head, praised Casey. Casey and Lana were standing behind Daniel. "Where were you?" Casey asked, scratching his brow. He tried to appear calm, but the smile revealed his true feelings. A pillow-shaped dragon lay on his shoulder, showing only the head of a bird and a large snot bubble drooping from his nose. He could not tell how powerful it was, no matter how he looked at it. Daniel set the teacup down and looked at Casey. The young man had accomplished a lot in the last few days, but the praises from the branch families were exaggerated. He had no idea how powerful the dragon next to him was. However, Casey was also a genius in the kingdom. He became a platinum-tier elite after obtaining a platinum-tier weapon. It would have been impossible for the original Casey to enter the top 16 of the kingdom without the aid of a weapon. If he had had to face anyone, he would have most likely been eliminated. Furthermore, that weapon was said to be Watson's creation. Casey had also advanced to gold tier thanks to Watson. He had done that with the sun and moon fruits. Those were not the most important. The main point was that Casey was Watson's subordinate and follower. That was the promise Casey made in the Holy Dragon Tavern. Many people in the capital were aware of it. In the eyes of the capital's noblemen, Casey had only been a wasteful squanderer. However, they had no choice but to hold Casey in high regard because of Watson's reputation. Daniel was initially unaware of the situation. He only found out about it after arriving in the royal city. He learned that his son, who had grown into a promising young man, was someone else's sidekick. His son had to rely on others to be kind to him. How could he stand it? He was also displeased with the individual who had reported to him in Watergate City. If there was a problem, he should have told him sooner rather than telling him what was good for him and making him happy for nothing. Casey's greatest accomplishment is related to Watson. Watson caused so much havoc in Watergate City, and now he is assisting Casey. What in the world is he thinking? Daniel muttered to himself. He had only arrived in the royal city. He discovered that things were not as he had imagined. Uncles and aunts, your eyesight is exceptional. That is a platinum-tier sleeping bag dragon. It did awaken its phoenix bloodline after consuming Watson's phoenix egg in the dragon lair. It is said to be the only dragon in the kingdom to possess both the dragon and phoenix bloodline. Previously, my sleeping bag dragon outperformed Watson's god-armed dragon, Sebastian, in the Dragon Knight test. Based on my relationship with Watson, my dragon can grow even stronger if I were to ask him to assist me. Watson has a lot of good stuff in his hands. He also has the phoenix egg and water from the Spring of Life. I heard that he could use water from the Spring of Life to make a platinum-tier potion to upgrade someone to a platinum-tier angel. Stella of the Abador family has been elevated to the rank of an angel. Many people in the academy are aware of this. It would be fantastic if he could provide me with such a potion. That is right. I am sure you have seen the battle that took place in the sky. According to His Majesty, a battle broke out because of the gods. It nearly ripped the royal city apart. Fortunately, Watson intervened in time to save the royal city. Watson even defeated the god's projection. It is extremely enviable. I believe I can reach Watson's level if I can get to platinum tier. Casey spoke confidently and boasted about himself. His words inadvertently elicited envy in Watson. The people from the branch families nodded in agreement. Case is truly amazing. He had established a rapport with a genius of Watson's caliber and even persuaded him to assist him. Do not say anything stupid. Watson is powerful because he has more resources. If young Master Casey had the same resources as Watson, he would be as powerful as well. No, he would be even more powerful than Watson. Someone must have noticed Daniel's face had darkened. He glared at the person beside him and quickly changed his words. Please accept my apologies for not agreeing on that point. Young Master Watson's strength is related to his resources, but those resources were obtained by young Master Watson using his own strength. There were some discordant voices amongst the crowd. Everyone's attention was drawn to the person who spoke. A young man with golden hair approached them. He was dressed in the distinctive blue clothing of the Ptolemy family branch. What is your name? Daniel's pupils constricted. Casey was there to spread the word about Watson's strength, which had given him a headache. He became even more enraged when he discovered that someone had opposed him. He went to the capital to hear people singing praises for Casey, not Watson. That is Geraint, Master Daniel. He is from the other side of the border. He was a member of our branch family who was dispatched to the border to serve as a mayor. He brought many border specialties with him when he returned to the capital. Among them is the spring of life mentioned by young Master Casey. Even His Majesty was moved. Geraint's introduction was cut short by the head of the branch family. He had an adoring grin on his face. Geraint has just arrived. He might have forgotten the Ptolemy family's rules. Do not be such a jerk. Do not bring yourself down to his level, Master Daniel. Are you from the border? Casey's eyes had already lit up before Daniel could respond. He moved quickly in front of Geraint and assessed him. Do you know anything about Watson's potion that allows a person to advance to platinum tier? I know about it because I used the potion that young Master Casey mentioned earlier. Geraint nodded. He emitted a powerful aura. On his back, 6 pure white wings appeared. That is fantastic. That potion appears to be exactly as I predicted. It has the potential to propel a person to the platinum tier. Do you happen to have any extra potions? If you do not have any, could you help me in requesting one from Watson? Casey's face lit up with surprise, and the light in his eyes grew brighter. He rubbed his hands together, requesting more. Daniel could not hold it in any longer at that point. He abruptly stood up and slammed the teacup in his hand onto the ground. Casey, go home. Take a look at yourself. What do you look like now? If you want to become a better cultivator, you must put in more effort rather than relying on the benefits of others. You can become a platinum tier angel simply by drinking that potion. There could be severe side effects. You do not even have to put in a lot of effort to get stronger. How can such a good thing exist in the world? Chapter 482. The environment was too bad. Father? As Daniel suddenly lost his temper and fell into a rage, Casey seemed a little confused. His arms twisted around his body unnaturally, and he appeared to be at a loss. Geraint, right? You are a talented person sent by the branch family to be the mayor of a border town. I remember that there is such a thing, indeed. Has your term ended? You can go back to the border now. Daniel took a deep breath and said indifferently to Geraint. Even though his words were very tactful, everyone could hear that he was secretly banishing Geraint to the border. In other words, he did not want to see Geraint there. That made many people from the branch families look at Geraint with pity. Initially, they had wanted to curry favor with him because Geraint had platinum tier strength and had a relationship with Watson. In the end, Geraint's words just made Daniel unhappy. Daniel had always stayed in the floating city and operated in the shipping industry. However, he was suddenly at the capital. Everyone knew what he was doing. He had heard of Casey's great feat and wanted to show off. It was not even Casey's credit but Watson's. Geraint could not even imagine such a simple thing. It's a pity. I had wanted to use Geraint's favor to build a relationship with Watson, but now it seems like it doesn't matter anymore. Watson was imprisoned in the dungeon because he was a genius and had too much pride. After returning to the royal city, he even contradicted His Majesty. I did not expect the people around him would also behave like that. Some of the people from the Branch family could not help but shake their heads. After experiencing the big battle in the sky, the Ptolemy family's manner was also affected. Fortunately, Daniel was at the capital at that time with a large number of guards. In addition, he hid in the manor at the beginning of the battle, so he was not even injured. However, because of that, Daniel did not know much about what happened during the battle. Daniel only heard that Watson had summoned his guards from the border, but he also had help from the sea folks and the dragons. He did not find it strange that Watson could do that. After all, Watson had let the sea folks and tens of thousands of slaves go when they were in the floating city. Perhaps the so-called sea folks that Watson had summoned were the slaves that had been let go. After that battle, Watson was pardoned by the king and was allowed to leave the prison. The interval between Watson's attack, the end of the battle, and His Majesty's pardoning was very short, but it was as if it had been planned long ago. It was not only Daniel who felt that way. The people from the other families also felt the same. No matter what, Watson was still the most powerful genius in the kingdom. There was no harm in trying to rope him into their family. However, after seeing Geraint rebuking Daniel, they dispelled the thoughts in their hearts. After all, they were part of the Ptolemy family. Before roping in Watson, they first had to live well within the family. Master Daniel, you want to expel me from the Ptolemy family just because I spoke the truth to protect young Master Watson? Geraint raised his head and asked in return. Are you questioning me? Daniel's eyes narrowed into slits. Geraint, don't say anything. Someone from a Branch family tugged at the corner of Geraint's clothes. Geraint did not care and shook his head. I'm not questioning the head of the family. I don't have the guts to do that. I'm just curious. But now I've roughly guessed his thoughts. I'll pack my things and leave the Ptolemy family. There was no anger in Geraint's expression. Instead, it was filled with disappointment. He had only been in the Ptolemy family for more than a day. During that time, he had found out about the conflict between Watson and the Ptolemy family in the floating city. He had wanted to resolve the conflict between the two, but Daniel's actions at that moment made him feel a chill in his heart. He did not feel that he had done anything wrong. On the contrary, Daniel had twisted the truth in order to show off his son. After being accused by others, he became angry out of humiliation. He did not have the bearing of a family head at all. There's no need to wait. You can leave now. Seeing that you're so protective of Watson, you should have a good relationship with him. I wonder if Watson will still take you in after he finds out that you've been chased away by the Ptolemy family. Daniel stretched out his hand and pointed outside the manor. Geraint, from now onward, you're no longer a member of the Ptolemy family. I'll ask Watson how he taught his subordinates. Seriously? He actually disowned Geraint? Looks like the family head is really angry this time. A group of people from the Branch families whispered to each other. No one dared stand up to Geraint. Geraint's face alternated between green and ashen as Daniel questioned him. He was silent and was about to turn around and leave when a youthful laugh suddenly came from the direction of the manor's entrance. Master Daniel, I noticed you got so angry the moment I arrived. Calm down. I'll be the one to instruct my subordinates. There's no need for you to worry about it. Everyone looked toward the direction of the voice and discovered that Watson was slowly walking into the manor. A fat man walked behind him, and he was winking at Geraint. He said, Geraint, it seems like you are the same as me. You are not welcomed into the family either. I don't know if it's because I've been by young Master Watson's side for too long, but I feel bored when I look at those people who are trying to flatter me. It's not that it's not good to do so, but they haven't found someone worthy to serve. Their standards are too low. Lubin, it seems that you have the same thoughts as me, Geraint replied and quickly walked in front of Watson. He knelt on one knee and said respectfully, the mayor of Monty Town, Geraint, pays his respects to young Master Watson. I've made a fool out of you just now. Get up, I'm here to pick you up. Next, I'm going to give you and Lubin a few missions. Watson helped Gerard up. Then, he looked around and shook his head slightly. The environment here is too bad. It's not suitable for you anyway. I'll give you two a decent place to live. The environment was too bad? Watson's words were like needles piercing the ears of the Ptolemy family members, especially when Daniel, whose face had already darkened. Watson, I heard that you've achieved quite a bit in the capital and even obtained the title as the strongest genius in the kingdom. However, isn't it inappropriate to speak in such a tone in front of me? Your master and I are old friends. No matter what, I am your elder. Watson, you're here." Before Daniel could finish his sentence, Casey had already rushed forward and stood in front of Watson with a smile. "I've just told my family about you. I've only had good things to say about you. I wonder if you can give me a potion that can upgrade a person to a platinum tier angel. If you're willing to do that, I'll do anything." It was not just Casey. The sleeping bag dragon on his shoulder seemed to have seen his family when it saw Watson. It instantly left Casey and went to hug Watson's cheek and let out an intimate cry. That scene made the Ptolemaic family members feel a bit awkward. Daniel's face darkened like a piece of charcoal. Chapter 483. Building the Seafolk's Stronghold. "What a little cutie." Watson reached out with his hand and patted the sleeping bag dragon on his shoulder. With a flip of his hand, 2 sun fruits immediately appeared in his hand. After the sleeping bag dragon happily ate them, he turned his gaze to Casey. "Casey, you said you'd do anything if I gave you a blessings from the gods and demons potion." "That's right, Watson." Casey nodded. "I want you to kneel and beg me. Is that even possible?" That. Casey looked troubled. He turned his head to look at Daniel and the other members of the Ptolemy family behind him. It was not just Daniel. The other members of the Ptolemy family shook their heads. Asking someone to kneel was too difficult, especially for Casey. As the Ptolemy family's second young master, someone who might succeed in the position of the family head in the future, if he were to kneel before Watson in front of so many people, he would lose all his dignity. "Watson, your conditions are too difficult," Casey said. Just as everyone had expected such an expression, he said, "There are too many people here. Let's change to another place. I'll kneel and beg for mercy from you." Casey's words made everyone's jaws drop. A few people from the branch families almost fell down. Daniel's eyes were also filled with killing intent. "Casey, you're a disgrace. Come back here." Daniel came in front of Watson and said, "Young Master Watson, when you were in the floating city, you made a deal with the Ptolemy family. I believe that it is a friendly deal. This time, not only did you come to take Durant away, you even humiliated my son Casey. What exactly is your motive? Do you have something against my family?" "Master Daniel, you are too serious. I'm taking Durant away because your family doesn't want him. As for Casey, he can do whatever he wants." Watson shrugged. Daniel snorted coldly. "Watson, even if it is as you say, you still want my son to kneel in front of so many people. You are not giving me any respect at all. It seems like you don't want to continue trading with the Ptolemy family. The last time you helped build the gold-tier ship, we agreed to give you a portion of the profits. I've brought the money, but from your attitude, it seems like you don't want the money. I'll give you 2 choices now. First, take the money that belongs to you, but you have to apologize for insulting my son. Also, you have to keep Durant. I haven't punished him for contradicting me just now. If you can do what you did just now, I'll pretend that it did not happen. The second option, you take Durant away. From now on, the deal between the Ptolemy family and you will be cancelled. I'll return the ship's blueprint to you. You can choose for yourself." Forget about apologies, Master Daniel. The Ptolemy family has already seen my blueprint and learned how to build a magic ship. Even if you return the blueprint to me now, you won't stop building it. Won't I be at a loss then? However, as a person with great magnanimity, I won't care about those gains and losses. The reason I came here today is to take Durant away. I don't care about anything else." Watson spoke indifferently and turned to walk out. Durant immediately came behind him and walked out with Lubin. Seeing that scene, the Ptolemy family members could not help but shake their heads, lamenting Watson's stupidity. For Durant's sake, he had refused to continue his relationship with the Ptolemy family. Durant was just a member of the branch family. How could his value be comparable to the entire Ptolemy family? At the same time, they also admired Watson. He was willing to go to such an extent for a subordinate, even willing to shed all pretense of cordiality with Master Daniel. Every subordinate would want such a superior. While everyone felt conflicted, Watson and Durant had already walked toward Ptolemy Manor entrance. Watson clapped his hands. "Nia, is the matter settled? My honorable master, according to your orders, I've already spent 10 million gold coins to buy all the 10 mansions nearby." Nia descended from the sky as the king of angels with countless layers of wings on her back and a crown on her head. The powerful aura emanating from her body made everyone feel suffocated. Her words shocked everyone even more. They spent 10 million gold coins to buy every mansion in the vicinity. Is that for real? Some were the residences of high-ranking ministers in the kingdom, and some were the residences of other noblemen. Were those people willing to sell their houses? Exclamations rose and fell. The noblemen who could live around the Archduke's family were of high rank, and those residences were carefully selected. Even meeting the owner of those houses was difficult, let alone buying the mansions. Well done. Watson nodded and smiled at Lubin and Durant behind him. I just said I'd give you a place to live in the royal city. Those houses were prepared for you. When he left the Abador family, he had asked Nia to start buying those houses. As the eldest daughter of the Saint Laurent family and the kingdom's second genius, plus the money Watson had given her, those noblemen could not refuse her offer. Young Master Watson, we can simply find a place to stay in the royal city. 10 luxurious manors worth 10 million gold coins? It's truly a waste to give them to us. Durant and Lubin looked at each other hesitantly. They were very grateful for Watson's good intentions, but as subordinates, they did not want Watson to spend money. As a superior, it's normal for me to care about my subordinates. Furthermore, I didn't say that only you are allowed to live in those luxurious mansions. Quote, who else is living with us? Durant and Lubin were a little puzzled, and at that moment, Watson clapped his hands once again. Crash! The sound of waves and the rolling sea descended from the sky. The 100,000 sea folk, led by Poseidon, descended. That scene shocked the hearts of the people there. Even the pedestrians on the streets looked at the scene with their mouths wide open. Well met, young Master Watson. Poseidon, leader of the sea folks, immediately bowed respectfully. The sea folk behind her did the same thing, swaying their fishtails to show their respect. Starting today, you will live with the sea folk and teach them how to function in human society. At the same time, I will construct a waterway between the royal city and the floating city. You can use it to pass goods between the royal city and the floating city and build an army. As Watson spoke, he extended his hand toward the outside of the manor. Fusion system, activate. Boom! With a loud bang, a huge palace appeared outside the Ptolemy manor. The entire palace was made of crystals and floated in midair. There was seawater flowing under the palace, and there was a school of fish swimming inside. The blue seawater covered half of the city, replacing the original sky. Chapter 484. Let me kneel. Congratulations, Master, for fusing so many manors. You have obtained a Diamond Tier building, Torrent Palace. Diamond Tier building. Torrent Palace. Abilities. Ocean creation, able to change any terrain you come into contact with into the ocean. Seawater barrier, a barrier formed by water elements that can withstand Diamond Tier attacks. Absolute disintegration. When the palace is attacked, it will not be destroyed, but will split into smaller and more palaces. Sea Giant, using seawater to condense into giants to attack enemies. Additional ability. Tsunami Cannon, a magic cannon made from seawater. The cannonballs released can cause a tsunami. After Watson performed the fusion, a seawater palace appeared in the sky. He immediately flew into the air and looked around the entire capital. Near the western part of the capital, he found a flat ground and waved his hand at it. The huge palace in the sky immediately flew out and landed on the huge flat ground to the west of the capital. The surging seawater washed the land away, causing a huge pit to appear on the ground. The seawater filled the pit, and the palace sank into the seawater, leaving only the tip. That was not the end. After the terrain changed from the plain to the sea, the waterways washed away the soil, turning into rivers and streams that meandered further away. Initially, there were no large lakes around the royal city except for a moat. However, under Watson's methods, a giant saltwater lake that stretched for dozens of kilometers appeared outside the royal city. The waterways that spread out from the lake connected all the small lakes nearby, turning them into a giant network of rivers. Success! Watson nodded in satisfaction at the waterways that appeared around the royal city. On the one hand, he had asked the sea folks to go to the royal city so that he could use their army to threaten King Landhar III. On the other hand, he wanted the sea folks to appear before humans officially. He wanted to start achieving peaceful progress between humans and the sea folks. At the same time, he also wanted to use the sea folks to build an army to expand his military influence. Isn't that spectacular? When Watson made his move, Durant spread his angel wings and flew into the air, watching the changes happening around the royal city. He could not help but sigh. No matter who it was, they would feel shocked when they saw the land collapse and clear rivers appear. They would feel amazed when they saw the sky blue color on the originally endless khaki. With just a wave of his hand, a huge lake appeared outside the capital. That is the strength of the kingdom's strongest genius. People from the Ptolemy family also flew into the air and saw Watson's actions. They could not help but exclaim in admiration. With just a wave of his hand, he had changed the environment of a place. They did not know if Sword Saint Reed could do the same thing, but they knew that the power displayed in that scene had far exceeded their understanding. The purpose of creating all of that was because Watson wanted to help his subordinates find a place to live. Geraint and Lubin, you will live there. Later, you can go and see if you like it. Before that, I still have some gifts for you. Watson descended from the air and smiled as he flipped his palm. A golden book appeared in his palm, and 2 tubes of potions floated outward. These 2 potions are dragon transformation potions. After consuming them, you will become a diamond-tier dragon, which will greatly increase your strength. The Black Moon Knights on Mount Creation have already consumed these potions. As mayors, you will have to consume them as well. Geraint and Lubin knelt with excited expressions on their faces as they looked at the potions in Watson's hand that emitted the aura of a dragon and surrounded the phantoms of the dragon race. Thank you, young Master Watson, for your gift. They had left Mount Creation and returned to their homes. They thought that they would be placed in more important positions with their families, but in the end, they were met with distrust and ostracism. On the contrary, Watson was able to give them great benefits that they had never dreamed of. Initially, they still had traces of nostalgia for their families, but that had completely changed. What family? In front of Watson, they were all trash. Rather than suffer in such a family, it was better to leave the family and become Watson's subordinates. Under Watson's encouraging gaze, Geraint and Lubin only hesitated for a moment before consuming the dragon transformation potion that Watson had given them. Roar, roar. After 2 consecutive roars, Lubin and Geraint's bodies instantly expanded. Scales emerged from their bodies, causing them to transform into giant dragons. Geraint had transformed into a light elemental golden holy dragon. Meanwhile, Lubin had transformed into a sacred fire razorback dragon whose entire body was burning with flames. 2 dragons of different shapes and sizes, each with a body length of 100 meters, were floating in the air, exuding a powerful might that was even more astonishing than that of 100,000 seafolks. Those 2 have become dragons. Such a terrifying aura, even more powerful than the so-called dragon knights. What kind of potion can transform a person into a dragon? That's too powerful. The Ptolemy family members swallowed their saliva, their eyes filled with respect and greed. That was a dragon. As long as one consumed the potion, they would be able to become such a powerful creature. Even a platinum-tier elite would be easily torn apart by the sharp claws of a dragon. Who would not want to experience such a feeling? Even though they did not know how that potion was made, Watson was willing to let his subordinates use it. It was apparent that it was not difficult to make it. They also did not know if they could spend money to buy it. They stole a glance at Daniel. Daniel had threatened Watson to cancel their trade relationship. Many of them felt sorry for Watson, thinking that Watson was a fool. However, they had changed their minds. Watson did not need to make any trade with the Ptolemy family because of his ability. A huge lake that stretched for dozens of kilometers had appeared outside the royal city, and with the seafolks, it would not be difficult to control the kingdom's water transportation in a short period. The Ptolemy family relied on water transportation for their livelihood. If something like that happened, one could imagine how miserable the Ptolemy family would be in the future. Everything has been settled. Let's go. While everyone was thinking that, Watson led Geraint and Lubin, who was back in their human forms, out with the 100,000 seafolks. Wait, Watson? At that moment, Casey shouted and ran in front of Watson. You haven't given me the potion that I asked for. Then one that can raise a person to platinum-tier angel. How can you just leave like that? Oh, you still want to ask me for the potion? Aren't you afraid that you'll be embarrassed when you pay? Watson raised his eyebrows. I'm not afraid. Casey puffed out his chest and replied firmly, I'll kneel for you now. Oh, right. It would be even better if you could give me a potion that can turn people into dragons. If you promise me, I'll kneel and kowtow to you. If he did not need to do anything to become a platinum or even diamond tier powerful creature, he would kneel and kowtow to anyone. It would not be shameful to do so to become stronger. After making up his mind, Casey was about to kneel toward Watson when a large hand suddenly reached out from behind him and pressed down on his shoulder. When he turned around, he saw Daniel, who had an ugly expression on his face. Casey's expression was somewhat anxious. "Father, are you going to dissuade me again? I admit that kneeling and kowtowing to Watson is detrimental to my identity as the Ptolemy family's second young master. However, you have also seen the potion in Watson's hands. As long as I take it, I can reach a level that I might never reach in my entire life. Father, I'm begging you. I don't want to give up that opportunity. Little brat, who's persuading you?" Unexpectedly, Daniel did not scold him. Instead, he glared at Casey. He turned around and knelt on one knee toward Watson. He said, "As the head of the family, I should be the one to kneel to Watson. It's not your turn yet. Watson, I apologize for my rudeness just now. We can have a good talk regarding your previous deal with the Ptolemy family and the potion that can turn a person into a dragon." Chapter 485. Fawning over him. Phew. Daniel watched as Watson and the 100,000 strong sea folks left. He slowly got up from the ground. Just a moment ago, he had kneeled on one knee to Watson and proposed to redo the trade plan. Watson discussed the details of the trade with him. In the end, they concluded that the Ptolemy family would sell the formula for the dragon transformation potion for him. However, Watson wanted 50% of the Ptolemy family's future sales. He also wanted the Ptolemy family to arrange for the sea folks to be legal citizens in the floating city and cooperate with the sea folks to build an army. Daniel tried hard to bargain, reducing Watson's demand to 40% of their profit. At the same time, when helping Watson to build an army, the Ptolemy family had the right to take a part of it and turn it into their own army, and the commission he promised Watson on the gold-tier magic ship would be given to Watson together with the money for the dragon transformation potion. At that moment, Daniel watched as Watson and the others left. His eyes flickered, and he remained silent for a long time. Casey walked to his side and said, "Father, I was worried that you did not understand the benefits of bowing to Watson. You resolutely refused to obey Watson, and you lost the opportunity to gain benefits for nothing. Now it seems like you haven't lost your mind, so I'm relieved." Quote, when Daniel wanted to stop him from kneeling to Watson, Casey had been very anxious. He thought about persuading his father to agree with him, but unexpectedly, his father took the initiative to kneel before Watson. He had always been useless, and he was said to be incompetent no matter what he did. As for befriending Watson, he was one step ahead of his father, which made him a little proud. After coming to the capital, not only had he become stronger, he had also become smarter. "Casey, don't speak now. My head is aching." Daniel turned around to look at Casey. When he saw the smug expression on Casey's face, he frowned and reached out to rub the space between his brows. "Father, what's wrong? Why do you have a headache? Are you sick? Why don't I find a healer to take a look at you? Or I can invite Watson back here. Watson has many novel things that can definitely cure your headache." "Casey, don't you understand? My headache is because of you. What's wrong with me?" Casey revealed a blank expression. Ever since Watson tormented him in the floating city, he had doubts about the young man. He had made up his mind that he would never oppose Watson in the future. At that time, he thought that he was quite cautious, and Daniel's subsequent actions had also verified his guess. No matter how tough Daniel was or how powerful the Ptolemy family was, it was nothing in front of Watson. As long as Watson waved his hand, he could make the Ptolemy family fall into despair. Watson could even make the entire floating city disappear. "Casey, as expected, I have too much hope for you." As expected of a fool. Even if he has great power, he is only a fool. Daniel shook his head and sighed. "Do you think I don't understand that Watson is very powerful? Do you not know the benefits of trading with Watson? But why didn't I trade with Watson in the first place? Instead, I only proposed the idea after the arrival of 100,000 sea folks." Yes, why? Casey was stunned for a moment and began to think. When Watson had arrived at the manor, Daniel could have proposed a deal with Watson. Even if his father had gotten angry with Geraint, it would not have affected the conversation between him and Watson. He knew that his father was a very shrewd person. He would never lose interest because of his emotions. After thinking hard for a while, Casey's eyes suddenly lit up. I understand why you did that. Oh? Daniel looked a little surprised. What do you understand? Tell me, you saw the 100,000 sea folks. The floating city used to be our base. Now that those sea folks have Watson's support, the floating city is very likely to be occupied by them in the future. In short, you are afraid of Watson. I'm not afraid of him. Daniel slapped the top of Casey's head, his lips trembling with anger. Taking a deep breath, Daniel calmed his anger. He turned his head to look at Lana, who was holding a parasol and had been silent since the beginning. Lana, it doesn't matter if Casey doesn't understand what I'm doing. You are smart, I know you'd understand. Tell Casey why I'm doing that. Yes, Father, she respectfully agreed. Lana cleared her throat and said, Father did not show any intimacy with Watson just now and instead was aggressive toward Watson because this is the royal city, the territory of King Landhar III. His Majesty hates people forming parties for personal gain. If he knew that the Ptolemy family had openly colluded with Watson for the sake of benefits, he would definitely be furious. If that's the case, why did Father choose to curry favor with Watson? He even knelt to Watson just now. Casey looked puzzled. To the Holy Dragon Kingdom's noblemen, kneeling was the highest form of etiquette. Knights usually used it to swear their fealty to the other party. That is because Watson created a lake in the royal city. At the same time, he also summoned 100,000 sea folks. Father changed his mind then. Such a thing had happened within the borders of the royal city, but His Majesty did not make a single move. Clearly, he tacitly approved of Watson's actions. After the gods' battle in the sky, rumors had spread that 2 princes had died in battle, and Watson was chosen to be the next king. I don't know if that is true. I think Father's actions just now were to confirm the authenticity of that matter. First, he reprimanded Geraint, who had come from the border, and then he found an excuse to quarrel with Watson. In that way, even if King Landhar III found out about that matter, he would think that the Ptolemy family and Watson were not on good terms, and that would not arouse the king's suspicion. Then, when he found out that Watson had unscrupulously summoned an army of sea folks in the royal city without anyone knowing about it, he decided to apologize and bow to Watson, obtaining the benefits that the Ptolemy family should have. Whether the person in charge of the capital was King Landhar III or Watson, the Ptolemy family still had some leeway to deal with them. Not bad. Daniel was delighted with Lana's explanation. He nodded in satisfaction and then glared at Casey. Learn well from your sister. Even though your sister is not in good health, she's 100 times smarter than you. The Ptolemy family has a high position and power in the city. However, the king can destroy us with just a word. If you want to live a more stable life, you have to advance. Yes, Father, I understand, Casey replied unwillingly. Then, he muttered, after explaining so much, isn't it the same result? As long as you please Watson, everything will be fine. What's the difference? Daniel looked as if he was disappointed. He shook his head, turned around, and walked quickly in the direction of the mansion. Father, where are you going? I'm going back to the floating city. If I had known this would happen, I would not have come to the capital in the first place. You're an idiot, and you're really pissing me off. I'd rather work hard for another 20 years than look forward to your success. Chapter 486. A Kiss for Your Promise. That Daniel is quite interesting. Watson flew in the air and headed toward the direction of the Riptide Palace that he had just built. He could not help but chuckle. Young Master Watson, how is Daniel interesting? In my opinion, he is just like the head of the Campbell family. They are both short-sighted idiots who only know how to protect the dignity of the nobleman. Lubin, who was following behind Watson, snorted coldly. Lubin, don't say that. Geraint frowned. Then, Lubin said, why can't we say that? We are from the Branch family, but we have already obtained the strength of Platinum Tier at the border. After coming to the capital, we even brought many good things to the people in our family. Not only are those people not grateful, they even ostracize us. Is it because we are from a Branch family that they are afraid that we will usurp their power? Lubin, so in your eyes, those 2 family heads are like that? I do have a different opinion from you. Watson interrupted with a smile. What do you think, young Master Watson? In my opinion, whether it is the Campbell family's head, Armand, or the Ptolemy family's head, Daniel, they are not really targeting you and Geraint. It's not that they don't want to put you in an important position, but they don't dare to do it. What does that mean? Because you're from the border, and you're my subordinates. The border count has always had a bad relationship with King Landhar III. If they put you in an important position, it'll look like they've been bribed by the border count, even if not true. Do you think His Majesty will suspect them? They're from an archduke family, yet they colluded with me, the strongest genius in the kingdom. If all the noblemen in the capital were like that, then King Landhar III's authority would be unstable. Do you think His Majesty will allow that situation to happen? Watson's eyes flickered as he explained that. Just now, in order to dispel Daniel's worries, I demonstrated my power in front of him. I built a waterway outside the royal city that connected the surrounding area. I even summoned the sea folks to let him understand who controls the royal city now. Only then did he propose to discuss a deal with me and kneel to apologize to me. I was thinking the same thing too, young Master Watson. Since those people were the masters of the archduke families and stood out from the other noblemen, they were definitely not stupid. They treated us like pawns. If they want to blame us, they can blame us for being too sensitive. Geraint smiled bitterly and sighed. No matter what, the Ptolemy family was only using him, while Watson treated him as family. His previous decision to leave the Ptolemy family and become Watson's subordinate had not changed. So that's how it is. Lubin nodded in understanding. He had thought too little about it. He thought that the Campbell family simply did not like him. Well, if they did not like him, then the higher-ups of the family would not have allowed him to attend the meeting. They would not have agreed to return the 1,000 holy relics that were owed to Watson after he resurrected Augustus. Augustus had died because of the king, and the Ptolemy family was not stupid. Augustus could only return home to recuperate because of Watson. The only person who had entered Augustus' room was the healer sent by the king. The Campbell family should have been dissatisfied with the king, and Watson took that opportunity to reach an agreement with them. Lubin could not help but sigh at his own stupidity. It turned out that Watson had gone to the two families to look for them, not only to protect them, but also to negotiate with the heads of the two families, and he had actually failed to see through it. At the same time, he also became suspicious of the mission Watson had previously given them. Young Master Watson, you said that you wanted us to live with the sea folks and help them to live like humans. The matter is not so simple, right? Coordinating the sea folks' life and helping to build an army was not something that everyone could do. Even professional soldiers like the Black Moon Knights would be able to do better than them. Why did Watson choose them to do that? Lubin, I'm impressed. It looks like you've finally learned to use your brain to think, Geraint teased him. Shut up, Geraint. Don't speak to me like young Master Watson. While the two were quarreling, Watson said, yes, helping the sea folks is only one of the tasks I've given you. The other most important purpose is that I hope that you can continue to stay in touch with the Campbell and Ptolemy families. It's best if you can flip their businesses and clansmen to our side. The heads of those two families are old foxes. They've only reached an agreement with me because I've suppressed King Landhar III. If anything happens in the future, it's very likely that they'll betray us. After all, their interests are more important to them. I want to make sure that they absolutely can't betray us. He had already suppressed King Landhar III. He needed to infiltrate the kingdom's ministries and assimilate the kingdom into his own. He still needed to prepare before he could do that. So that's what you're thinking, young Master Watson, Lubin exclaimed. If someone had told him of such a plan, he would have assumed that person had gone insane. However, at that moment, he could only feel the excitement in his heart. It was not just him. Geraint also agreed. All right, I'll tell you the details of the mission I've given you later. As for now, you can rest well in your new home. Watson led everyone to the sky above the lake outside the royal city. This palace is so beautiful. Is this our future home? Many of the sea folks whispered to each other as they looked at the Riptide Palace. Their eyes shone like stars. From now on, that is your temporary home. The waterway here is connected to the floating city. I hope you can extend a portion of the Dragon Palace that will be built in the floating city to the royal city. That way, you can realize the short-term conversion of resources. My idea is to build such waterways in all parts of the kingdom so that the sea folks can freely travel to every place. At the same time, I will also propose to His Majesty that he declare the law on the protection of demi-humans so that the sea folks can walk on the streets openly. Watson's voice was not loud, but his words contained an exciting power. The sea folks cheered and said, Long live young Master Watson. We will definitely fulfill your orders. Under Poseidon's lead, they began to move toward the palace. However, Alice did not leave. Instead, she went to Watson, grabbed his hand, and said, "Brother Watson, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Can I live with you instead?" "Alice, don't trouble young Master Watson." Poseidon frowned. Alice immediately bit her lip, and a look of grievance flashed through her round eyes. Seeing that scene, Watson reached out and patted Alice's sky-blue hair. He said, "Before the king declares the law to protect the demi-humans, you will need to rely on your magic to walk on the streets, Alice. It's not that convenient. I'll make an agreement with you. When the protection law for the demi-humans is introduced, I'll bring you to live with me in the capital. Then, it's settled then." Alice stuck out her little finger and hooked it with Watson's. Her eyes beamed like a crescent moon. Then, she gently swung her beautiful fishtail from the lower half of her body, making herself taller and closer to Watson. Her soft lips touched Watson's cheek, leaving a faint hickey on it. Then, Alice blushed and took 2 steps backward. "Brother Watson, I'm sorry that I was too excited. That is a kiss for your promise. After this kiss, you can't ever go back on it." Chapter 487, 7 Divine Dragon Stars. I did not expect Her Highness to be so bold. It would be great if Her Highness had kissed him on his lips. I feel that Her Highness and young Master Watson are a good match. If the two could become a couple, it would be a blessing for the sea folks. When Alice kissed Watson, the surrounding sea folks looked excited. Some even looked envious. They wanted to kiss Watson too, but they did not have the courage or opportunity to do so. Alice. Poseidon stood still. Her expression looked conflicted. At that moment, Owen stood beside her and looked at Alice with a smile. "Poseidon, don't worry, I think that is a good thing. Since ancient times, the sea folks have never had any good results when they fall in love with humans. However, Watson is not an ordinary human. I think he would have the ability to make Alice happy. After all, he has changed things for the sea folks. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm concerned about an outstanding genius like Watson. He will always have many beautiful girls around him. Will Alice really be able to gain Watson's favor?" Poseidon muttered in a slightly worried tone. Alice was a well-deserved pearl among the sea folks. She was the dream lover of many of the sea folks' youths. However, in Watson's eyes, her identity as Princess of the Sea Folks meant nothing. Watson was considered the god of the sea folks. Allow the young people to deal with their own problems. We can't stop them even if we wanted to. We just need to take care of ourselves. Owen coughed as he spoke and extended his hand to Poseidon. He wanted to put his hand on Poseidon's shoulder, but Poseidon rolled her eyes and avoided him. "What do you mean by taking care of our own problems? Owen, I don't think you care about Alice at all. You just want to make use of the opportunity to make a scene." "No. Poseidon, what do you mean? The most important thing is sending the sea folks to the Riptide Palace and then building an underwater dragon palace that connects to the water city. The important thing is to put away your miscellaneous thoughts first." Quote, "What you said makes sense." After reprimanding Owen, Poseidon looked in the direction of Alice again. At that moment, Alice was already overwhelmed by the whistles and jeers of the sea folks. She turned around, threw herself into the water, and disappeared. "Let's go." Poseidon turned her head. Perhaps it was just as Owen had said, that she should not be too strict with her children. At least Alice looked very happy. "Let's go, Nia." After settling down with the sea folks and sending Geraint and Lubin to the Riptide Palace to familiarize them with the environment, Watson brought Nia back to the royal city. "Next, I'm going back to the Sword Saint's courtyard. Nia, you should go back to the Saint Laurent family as well. After leaving the family for so long, I'm afraid your family will be worried." Quote, "Yes, master." Nia nodded. She spread the angel wings on her back and flew away in a flash. Meanwhile, Watson was flying in the direction of the Sword Saint's courtyard. While he was flying, he was sizing up the people below him. Even though the royal city had not suffered any damages due to the battle, many residents had been injured. At that moment, there were wounded people with bandages wrapped around their bodies everywhere in the royal city. The healers carried them to the various treatment residences on stretchers. There were also members of the Holy See who were running around the streets in high spirits. They sang Watson's name while announcing to the other priests that they believed in Watson and that he could obtain great power, even over his own family and friends. That caused Watson to feel a large amount of faith transferred into his body while flying on the streets, increasing his strength bit by bit. Lord Dragon Emperor. Just as he was enjoying that great feeling, he heard a voice from the sky. A few dragons, led by Fafnir, came before Watson. They were all dragon kings. However, there was no sign of Nidhogg, the Forest Dragon King, or the Dark Dragon King. Lord Dragon Emperor, we have completed the mission you gave us. Next, it's time for us to return to the Divine Dragon Star. But before we leave, we would like to greet you, and, the Light Dragon King, Odyssey, spoke hesitantly. He was interrupted by Fafnir. Odyssey, why are you speaking so incoherently? Are you manly or not? If you don't dare to say it, I'll help you say it. Did you see that Lord Dragon Emperor had helped the sea folks build a lake dozens of kilometers away from the royal city, and that made you jealous? Would you like to ask the Lord Dragon Emperor to build you a divine dragon star for your nest? Fafnir, don't talk nonsense. I don't think that. No, I mean, can you be a little more tactful? Odyssey scratched his hair in distress. He was right. They had almost 1 million baby dragons on the divine dragon star after the dragons drank the super reproduction potion. In order to create those sovereign tier dragons, the dragons' resources were exhausted. Furthermore, Watson had promised to build a divine dragon star for each dragon king, covering the entire world. He only wanted to urge Watson before he left. A divine dragon star? That's easy. Watson smiled and raised his hand to point at the top of his head. Fusion system, activate. Following Watson's action, the stars that were hidden in the back of the sky suddenly fell down, turning into a few huge flaming meteors. The flaming meteors had yet to fall, but they had already brought intense pressure with them. Many people in the capital raised their heads and looked terrified after seeing that scene. The capital had just suffered a huge blow, and they would not be able to withstand another one. However, their panic did not last long. The falling meteorites in the sky turned into rays of light and intertwined together, turning into a huge star that hung in the sky. Watson fused one after another. Soon, 7 stars that were exactly the same as the divine dragon star appeared in the sky. Congratulations, Master. You have fused the stars in the sky and obtained 7 divine dragon stars. Since his strength had increased to the peak of the diamond tier, Watson's fusion ability had also evolved. Previously, he was not strong enough to fuse huge things, such as the stars. I have fused the divine dragon stars. You can each have a share. When he saw the light in the eyes of the dragon kings in front of him during the fusion process, Watson smiled slightly. Everyone here will have one. Since Nidhogg, the Forest Dragon King, and the Dark Dragon King are not here, I will bring their divine dragon stars back to them. Odyssey, the Light Dragon King, said with a cough. He spoke in a righteous tone. His words had just left his mouth when the other dragon kings rolled their eyes at him. You say that you were bringing the divine dragon stars back for the other dragon kings, but in reality, you just want to take all those divine dragon stars for yourself, right? You're just one dragon king, and you want to take 4 divine dragon stars. Aren't you a little too bold? Aren't you afraid that Nidhogg will find out about that? The Light Dragon King, Odyssey, puffed out his chest. Of course, I'm not afraid. In the past, Nidhogg was very powerful, but now, with the help of the Dragon Emperor, I've also advanced to the same level as a dragon god. I don't know who would win in a fight, me or Nidhogg. The Light Dragon King suddenly noticed that the expressions of the dragon kings in front of him were not quite right. They were staring strangely at him. He subconsciously turned back to look, and a cold sweat instantly broke out. He did not know when, but a man with clown makeup and a gloomy face appeared behind him. It was Nidhogg. Chapter 488. Return to the Sword Saint Courtyard. Nidhogg, when did you arrive? Odyssey swallowed his saliva, and his expression darkened. Around the time you said that you don't know who would win in a fight against me. Nidhogg's tone was gloomy. The Dragon Emperor wants to give me a divine dragon star. Even though I haven't said that I want it, it's still considered mine. If you want to take it without my permission, you are violating my rights. Let's find a place to solve that problem later. You shouldn't have bragged, Odyssey. You are finished now. The voice of a gloating woman echoed. A green ripple appeared in the air, and a tree that looked like the world tree appeared in the air. Then, it turned into light spots and disappeared. The Forest Dragon King walked out of it. It's still uncertain whether you'll win in a battle with Nidhogg. Odyssey is really getting more boastful. There's no need for Nidhogg. I can kill you by myself. After the Forest Dragon King, another person appeared in the air. He had a thick black bamboo hat and held a huge sickle in his hand. It was the Dark Dragon King. Forest Dragon King, Dark Dragon King, why are you here? Odyssey looked like he wanted to cry. Didn't you say that you have something to do? We do have something to do. I'm in a hurry to go and meet up with the Elven Kingdom's army. After all, I promised the Elven King that I would accept their employment. It's not good for me to keep running outside. As for Dark Dragon King, I heard that he recently made an agreement with the Winter Nation and needs to rush back to help train their dragon knights. I'm not sure what's wrong with Nidhogg. The Forest Dragon King explained in a neutral tone, although there's something wrong, we're not blind. The Dragon Emperor created 7 divine dragon stars. We could see such a feat even if we were far away, so we rushed here. After all, no matter how important our topic is, it can't possibly be as important as the Dragon Emperor. Fortunately, we're back. Otherwise, we would not have known that you wanted to snatch our divine dragon star. Now, tell us what to do. The Forest Dragon King began to clench his fists. Lord Dragon Emperor, I suddenly remembered that my lair in the Dwarf Kingdom is on fire. I have to hurry back and put out the fire. Farewell. Odyssey was sweating profusely. He said those words to Watson, then turned around and flew into the sky. His body expanded and transformed into the appearance of his true form, the divine star-seeking dragon. He opened his huge mouth and swallowed one of the divine dragon stars. Then, he turned into a streak of light and quickly disappeared from where he was, flying toward the west. Odyssey, weren't you very proud just now? Stop right there. The Forest Dragon King followed him and flew into the air. She transformed into a divine nature dragon, swallowed the divine dragon star, and chased after him. After the remaining dragon kings obtained the divine dragon star, they each bid farewell to Watson and left. It took less than a minute from the creation of the divine dragon star to the time when the dragon kings took them away, and some people in the capital saw that scene. They saw the huge dragons and the stars that disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, they treated it as if they had seen it wrongly and did not care. After the dragons left, Watson stretched his back and said, "The Black Moon Knights are under the control of Senior Brother Sylvan. They must have returned to Mount Creation through the spatial passage. I don't need to go and take a look." He had arranged for the sea folks and the dragons to support his army. He did not need to make any arrangements for the Black Moon Knights. He did not need to do anything then. With that thought in mind, a teleportation array appeared under his feet, and he arrived at the Sword Saint's courtyard in a flash. He had been busy during that period. He had been either in the dragon lair or in prison. Although it had only been a few days, he felt like it had been a long time since he had returned to that home. I wonder what my masters will look like when they see me. Excited? Did they miss me? While murmuring, Watson slowly pushed open the door. The moment he opened the door, a cold sword aura whistled toward him, almost cutting his neck in half. Fortunately, he was agile and stretched out his fingers to pinch the sword aura, or else he might have been injured. Raising his head to look into the courtyard, he discovered that Antonio and Reed were fighting. Antonio was holding a huge magic staff, and there were invisible threads of destiny around Reed, blocking the magic that Antonio had released. A luxuriously dressed old man stood in the center. It was King Landhar II, who Watson had rescued. At that moment, he was standing outside the field to judge Antonio and Reed's fight. "Your Majesty, Antonio and I have been fighting for half an hour. In your opinion, who is stronger? It is me, right? Reed, stop bragging. No matter how you look at it, I am stronger. If it weren't for the fact that I was afraid of releasing too much power and damaging the capital, you would have lost long ago. Antonio, stop bragging." While Antonio and Reed were arguing, the old man sensed Watson's arrival. He turned his head and looked at him. "Watson, you're back. It's good that you're back. Can you tell me who is stronger, Antonio or me?" It was Reed who had spoken. Watson was a little dazed. He subconsciously walked toward the old king and asked, "What's going on?" He thought that his two masters would be happy and excited to see him since they had not seen him for a few days. Who would have thought that his two masters did not miss him at all but were fighting with each other? "It's my fault. I came here not long ago. 20 years had passed since I asked the two of them, which of them is the strongest in the capital? Then, they started to fight. The old king had an innocent look on his face. He sighed. Just for that? Watson did not believe it. It had been decided long ago about who was stronger between Antonio and Reed. Although the two of them fought, they had always been friends. There was no need to fight over such a small matter. Of course, I also said that I would confer the title of the strongest war god in the kingdom to the stronger of them too. And I will fulfill one of their wishes, the old king said. As for the kingdom's former king, his words were still very authoritative. He said that if Antonio's wish were fulfilled, then any wish could be accomplished. So, you've been playing tricks on them. Watson felt a little headache. He sent King Landhar II to the Sword Saint's courtyard because he wanted him to help expose King Landhar III's conspiracy and make him the king. He did not expect the old king to provoke his two masters into a fight. Watson, admit that I'm stronger. Don't worry, my wish is very simple. That is to help you become the future king, Antonio said as he separated from Reed. Reed did not want to be outdone. Watson, my wish is the same. Not only can I make you the king, but I can also make Tina the queen. Aren't I good to you? Now, tell him I'm the strongest. Since when did they judge a person's strength based on their good or bad deeds? The corner of Watson's mouth twitched, and a strange expression appeared on his face. Masters, don't fight anymore. You don't have to do anything to fulfill your wishes. King Landhar III has already announced that I am the next successor to the throne. What? As soon as Watson's voice fell, Antonio and Reed turned their heads to look at him. Even the old king opened his mouth and stared at Watson in disbelief. Chapter 489. Watson's Backup Plan. Watson, you didn't tell me you were the future king? Antonio smirked. Certainly not, Master Antonio. Why would I deceive you? Watson responded. What happened, Watson? Why did King Landhar III unexpectedly name you as the king's heir? Tell us everything. Reed came to a halt in his struggle with Antonio and rushed to Watson, gripping his hand as they entered the courtyard. He and Antonio had always hoped to assist Watson in becoming the next monarch. As a result, they indirectly approached many noblemen. It would take at least 10 years, according to their strategy, to get the backing of all those noblemen. On the other hand, Watson simply needed a month to do what they could not in 10 years, making King Landhar III abdicate the throne. They were all curious as to how Watson had done it. Watson, Reed, and Antonio exited the courtyard, eager to find a private place to talk. How is it possible that Friar has picked Watson as the next monarch? The old king mumbled, the wrinkles on his cheeks squeezed together. Friar has 3 sons and a daughter. Watson has qualified to become the future king, but he can't become the king. Friar, what are you thinking? No, I will have to track him down and question him. The old king's eyes glowed with a tinge of evil. He dashed out of the Sword Saint's courtyard and approached the palace. When he arrived in the Sword Saint's courtyard, he had learned a lot from Antonio and Reed, including Watson's plot to usurp King Landhar III's throne and how much power Watson possessed. He had intended to inform King Landhar III, but a fight between gods had erupted in the skies, and Antonio and Reed did not leave the courtyard. Antonio and Reed were preparing to leave after the battle to assess the situation. However, he exploited his statements to incite a disagreement, ending in a brawl between the two of them and their refusal to leave. The old king had no idea what was going on outside. He only wanted to stall the two of them and prevent them from assisting Watson. He concluded that Watson would be no match for King Landhar III without the assistance of those two. When the old king departed the Sword Saint's courtyard, Antonio and Reed escorted Watson to a quiet chamber. Antonio and Reed shut the door as soon as they entered the room. One of them released an energy barrier to firmly surround the pillar in the room, preventing any sound from escaping. He turned his head to look at Watson after that. Watson, wait, should I inquire whether you are Watson? Antonio and Reed raised their heads, one after the other, each with a solemn expression on their face as they stared at Watson. Their eyes glowed with suspicion. If Watson did not respond to them, he would be killed. Masters, what is the matter with you two? Watson extended both of his hands in greeting. King Landhar II has been delaying time by inciting us to fight. On the surface, we appear to be arguing, but in truth, we have been paying attention to what is going on outside. The conflict was on a godly scale. There are only 7 gods in the kingdom, aside from you and the young girl from the Saint Laurent family. King Landhar III invoked the kingdom's 7 gods, and you are now the king to be. There is not any explanation for that. He never does anything that is not beneficial to himself. It is difficult for us not to assume that is his aim. He didn't think twice about summoning the kingdom's 7 gods simply to hand the throne to you. According to my best estimate, King Landhar III performed those things to inhabit your body. So, Watson, are you still alive? Reed's threads of destiny encircled Watson, trapping him from the front, rear, left, and right. He made that assumption not just because of his extensive knowledge but also because Watson had previously divulged a part of King Landhar III's plot to him. Watson had also established a backup plan to avoid him from being occupied by King Landhar III without anybody noticing. It was not that they did not want to aid him, it was just that they could not materialize in the way he had planned. Of course, I am Watson. I will show it to you, my 2 masters. Fusion system, Watson said as he stretched his right palm toward the thread of destiny. As his voice faded, the thread of destiny and Antonio's crown staff transformed into rays of light that entwined in the air and transformed into a magic staff consisting of barely noticeable threads. It was blazing with the original power of the separate elements. They united into a massive crown, at times retaining the stance of a staff and at other times transforming into threads of various colors that meandered throughout the space. Congratulations, Master, for merging 2 Starlight Tier items to make a Peak Tier tool. Peak Starlight Tier 2. The Fusion Thread of the Dual God. Effect. Contains all the abilities of the Thread of Destiny and the Crown Staff. Additional effects. Fusion Imprint. Through the connection of the Arcane Peak line, the ability of the tool can be given to different people, allowing them to gain the power of the Crown Staff and be under their own control. Fusion Creation. Creating a mysterious creature with strength comparable to that of a god. The ability was considerably more significant when the 2 Starlight Tier tools were fused. The tool allowed the owner to become a crown mage, but it could also be used to turn other individuals into puppets. It also possessed the strength of a crown mage and the ability to construct magical beings akin to gods. My power is fusion magic. Do you think I am Watson now? While he was playing with the fusion thread in his palm, the strands containing the original energy fused in the air were transformed into elemental beings with a hazy starlight aura. Some of the creatures resembled dragons. In contrast, others resembled asteroids that had been compressed many times, releasing a tremendous aura. Their bodies were linked to the threads and were under Watson's control. Watson, the king most likely desired to possess your body because he admired your fusion abilities. If you are King Landhar III, utilizing that ability is pointless. Reed was impressed when he saw Watson's fusion talent, but he quickly shook his head. It makes sense. I don't have any viable options for proving myself right now. Even if I tell you anything you are unaware of, it will be interpreted as an invasion of my memory to acquire your trust, right? If that is the case, I shall leave now. In fact, I recently finished building a Riptide Palace for the Sea Folks. If that does not work, I shall move to the Dragon's Divine Dragon Star. After the fusion, I shall reclaim the Peak Starlight Tier tool. I will also take away the other weapons in the courtyard, so you don't have to worry about them injuring you. You don't have to prove it, Watson. We know you are Watson. Antonio abruptly nodded. I believe that as well, Reed replied. Why do you believe me, masters? Watson was dazed as he noticed Antonio scratch his non-existent beard and giggle. Watson, if you are King Landhar III, it doesn't matter if you use the weapon to entice us or your fusion magic to threaten us. King Landhar III will not be able to reclaim the weapon. Yes, you'd take away our weapons after fusing them, and also the other weapons. Watson's stingy approach was undeniably his. Reed nodded. Watson was rendered dumbfounded by his statement. Is that how you determine my identity, masters? Is that how you think of me? Chapter 490. The Queen's Grave. At that moment, in the palace. Your Majesty, Watson had just used magic to create a massive lake on the west side of the capital. It seems to be connected to the Water City. In addition, Watson had placed 100,000 soldiers around the lake. What should we do? A person who looked like a general asked as he knelt on one knee. His expression had darkened. The Sea Folks and humans' relationship had never been harmonious in the past. Many humans had captured the sea folks as slaves, and the sea folks would occasionally sing on the sea's surface to lure the humans into a shipwreck. The appearance of 100,000 sea folks outside the capital would impact the royal family's authority in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. I have already announced Watson as the future king. Therefore, Watson's actions are no different from mine. Next time, there's no need to report such matters to me. You may leave. King Landhar III waved his hand. Yes, Your Majesty. I understand. The guard wanted to say something, but when he saw King Landhar III's determined expression, he could only clench his teeth, bow respectfully, and take his leave. At that moment, King Landhar seemed to have thought of something. He said, "Wait a moment. In the battle just now, the Dragon Knight's captain, Julius, died in battle to protect me. We can't be without a captain for a day. Let Watson be the new captain. Report this to the soldiers and the Dragon Knights." After giving the order, King Landhar III watched the soldier leave. At that moment, a man's voice suddenly came from beside him. "King Landhar III, you appointed Watson as your heir. You also changed the kingdom's church system, allowing Watson to replace the 7 gods. Now, you even made him the Dragon Knight's captain. That doesn't seem like something you would do." The man who spoke was none other than Sylvan. He had been accompanying King Landhar III to monitor him. "Sylvan, you know me. After all, we've spent a few years together. It's too harsh of you to say such words." "Seriously? I used to be miserable because I thought I knew you. Avril said that you're a cold, heartless, selfish person." Sylvan sneered, his eyes full of killing intent. Taking a deep breath, he hid the killing intent in his eyes and said, "I followed you to the palace to prevent you from doing anything harmful to Watson. On the other hand, I also wanted to see where Avril was buried." "Tell me, where did you bury Avril? Come with me." After a short silence, King Landhar III led Sylvan deeper into the palace courtyard. On the way, they passed by a garden in full bloom. Queen Isabella was with Kiana. Each of them was holding a watering can to water the flowers. After seeing King Landhar III and Sylvan, the 2 women put down their things, came to the 2 of them, and bowed. "Greetings to His Majesty and His Excellency. Father, uncle." Kiana held Isabella's hand and bowed respectfully to Sylvan. She stole a glance at Sylvan. She had long heard of that border count. The most important thing was that Sylvan came from the border. They said that he had a good relationship with Watson, who was also from the border. She had seen the battle in the sky, but she was not strong enough to see it clearly. She had only vaguely seen Watson's figure. She had wanted to leave the palace and find a closer place to watch the battle. However, the palace was protected by many guards. Not even her mother could not go. They could only choose to water the flowers there. While Kiana was sizing up Sylvan, the older man glanced at Isabella and Kiana. There was no emotion in his eyes. "King Landhar III, this is your wife and child? When you were with Avril, you promised that you would not marry anyone else in this life except Avril." "What bullshit?" Sylvan's words made Isabella feel awkward. She waved her hands around her lower abdomen, seemingly at a loss. "Sylvan, I have never forgotten the promise I made in the past. However, as the ruler of a kingdom, I am duty-bound to carry on the bloodline of the royal family. I have let Avril down. Now that 2 of my 3 sons have died, I have let my ancestors down." King Landhar III sighed, his expression sorrowful. "Your Majesty, what did you say? Our sons are dead? When did that happen? Is that true?" Isabella held her breath and reached out to grab the corner of King Landhar III's shirt. She had been watering the flowers with Kiana. She did not know what had happened outside, and no one told her. "Our eldest and second sons had died, Isabella." "That is true," King Landhar III explained with a flash of pity on his face. Isabella could no longer hear him and stumbled backward. If it were not for Kaya supporting her, she would have fallen to the ground. "How did they die? I am saddened by their deaths too. Life, old age, illness, and death are all fated. As the queen, you must not show such panic. If outsiders were to see it, it would damage the dignity of the royal family. Also, since I've already told you the news of our sons' deaths, I'll let you know one more thing. I've just confirmed Watson as the kingdom's next king." "King Landhar III, Sylvan said, his voice containing a warning tone. It was easy to guess the relationship between King Landhar III and his wife, telling her about the deaths of the two princes and then about Watson becoming his heir. As expected, Isabella's eyes instantly turned red. "Your Majesty, why did you let our children die and establish Watson's foothold in the kingdom? We have another son and a daughter. Did Watson do something to you? I saw the battle in the sky. The palace would have collapsed if it weren't for the protection of our guards. Did Watson cause the deaths of my two sons? It has nothing to do with Watson. I'll go over the details with you later. Before that, please move aside. I have something important to discuss with Sylvan." King Landhar III's majestic tone brought Isabella back from her irrational emotions. She gritted her teeth. Even though she looked reluctant, Isabella still pulled Kiana toward her. "Don't just stand there, Sylvan." King Landhar III did not even look at Isabella. He took Sylvan and disappeared into the depths of the flowers. During that process, Sylvan looked back and saw the hatred in Isabella's eyes. Even if King Landhar III said that that matter had nothing to do with Watson, Isabella would not believe it. As he thought of an opportunity to tell Watson about that, Sylvan followed King Landhar III to the deepest part of the flower bush. The deepest part of the flowering shrub was different from the outside. There were no colorful flowers there. There was only one type of flower that bloomed. It was a strange flower with three colors: red, yellow, and blue. Pansy is a flower that generally blooms in the forest of eternity. It's also Avril's favorite flower. It's rare that you still remember it and plant them on such a large area. "This is my sister's grave, right?" There were no tombstones or prominent graves, but Sylvan was sure that Avril's body was buried there. King Landhar III nodded. He waved his hand, and the ground in the garden immediately parted, revealing a huge coffin inside. It was a crystal coffin. A beautiful girl lay in it. Her platinum hair fell behind her head, and her pointy ears were hidden in the strands of her hair. Her skin was almost transparent, and one could vaguely see the blood vessels. Her eyebrows were groomed with love, and her hands were placed on her chest. The gorgeous pleated dress she wore did not have a single wrinkle on them. She looked like she was only sleeping. Chapter 491. King Landhar III's Confession. Avril. Sylvan rushed forward. He was shocked that Avril's body had not rotted after more than 10 years. However, compared to his surprise, he felt a longing for her. Unfortunately, he had not even taken 2 steps when a powerful force blocked him. King Landhar III's body emitted a powerful aura of a peak diamond tier elite. He extended his right hand, but his palm was the size of a mountain, giving Sylvan a compelling pressure. Even his space was distorted, and the ground sank several meters. Gravity control. King Landhar III had used the technique that he learned from the past 7 gods, including the goddess of earth and fertility, Gaia. The 7 gods had not only taught him faith but had also given him a portion of their energy. That was also why he could become a peak diamond tier elite even though he did not cultivate. Unfortunately, the 7 gods had already broken off their connection with him. It would be difficult for him to improve in the future. However, a peak diamond tier elite was enough to suppress Sylvan. At that moment, Sylvan was only an ordinary diamond tier elite. He had consumed the dragon transformation potion in Mount Creation and turned into a sovereign tier dragon, and he had the strength to contend with a starlight tier existence. However, in front of King Landhar III, he was still a little weaker as he had not transformed into a dragon. "King Landhar III, what are you doing?" Sylvan's expression changed. "I can feel the strong pressure under my feet as if it was going to press my body to the ground." "Nothing. I don't want you to get too close to Avril's coffin. I've already set up a lot of magic barriers here. Even the crystal coffin is a diamond tier relic from some ancient ruins. It can barely protect Avril's body from decay. If you approach and destroy the crystal coffin and the magic barriers around it, I will kill you mercilessly." King Landhar III's voice was calm, but there was an unquestionable tone in his words. "King Landhar III, what are you talking about? You don't believe me? Then I'll show you." King Landhar III waved his hand, and the crystal coffin immediately caved in. A huge pit appeared under the ground, and skeletal arms stretched out from within it. Then, the owners of those skeletal arms, zombies with tattered clothes and some parts of their flesh and blood, crawled out of the ground. Some of those zombies looked old, while others seemed quite fresh. Whatever kind of zombies they were, their bodies emitted a greenish-gray mist, and their turbid eyes contained no life other than a desire for flesh and blood. The moment those zombies appeared, Sylvan's face stiffened, and his face was covered in disbelief. King Landhar III, you planted so many zombies under Avril's coffin? What are you doing? In the past, a zombie crisis had erupted in the territory of a certain nobleman in the kingdom. At that time, the region had been infected by a strange virus, and the infected corpses would come back to life. They became monsters that only knew how to devour without thinking, and those bitten by such a monster would become the same horror. That virus had caused panic in the kingdom. Later, King Landhar III ordered the army to burn that nobleman's territory and everyone in it, so the spread of the virus was prevented. Sylvan knew about that matter because the main cause of the incident, Sven, was a servant on Mount Creation. Furthermore, he also knew that the matter was not as simple as it seemed. Are you surprised? Why don't I tell you what I did in the years after Avril's death? First, I purged the demonist church and sent troops to search for a large number of ancient ruins. My men had explored most of the ruins in the kingdom. Finally, I combined some of the demonist church's methods to create a crystal coffin that could protect Avril's body from decay. I've also been sending people to research ways to resurrect Avril. I've searched almost all the ruins in the kingdom when the Dragonspine snow mountain collapsed. That was the fault of one of the researchers I sent, Moriarty. On the one hand, I wanted to collapse the Dragonspine snow mountain and use the Winter Nation to pressure you. On the other hand, I also wanted to use the magical beasts on the Dragonspine snow mountain to develop a power that could resurrect people. Unfortunately, that research failed, just like the zombie virus that I spread in the nobleman's territory. Quote, King Landhar III's expression was calm as he spoke as if he was talking about someone else. You're saying that all your efforts have been to resurrect Avril. King Landhar III, you're lying, right? Sylvan's voice trembled. I saw Avril die in your arms. I also saw you send troops to exterminate the demonist church without even burying Avril's corpse. Now you're telling me that your goal is to resurrect Avril? That was ridiculous. He hated King Landhar because the man had killed Avril to fight for the throne. After that, he even sent people to spread the word that Avril was a woman with a dark heart. He took the opportunity to exterminate the demonist church. Such a person had kept Avril's body and wanted to resurrect her? Was he putting on a show? No matter how scheming a person was, there was no need to persist 10 years for a show. Furthermore, King Landhar III did not even let anyone know about it. What kind of show was that if no one knew about it? At that moment, Sylvan finally understood him. If King Landhar III did not let Avril down and did everything he could for her, then what reason did he have to hate him? Sylvan, it's okay if you don't believe me. But now that you've seen this, I hope you can help me. No matter what methods I used, I could not bring Avril back to life. But now, I see hope, and that hope is in Watson. He has the skills to confuse things and make them stronger. It's obviously the key to bringing Avril back to life. I had planned to resurrect Avril when I take over Watson's body and write a mandate to let Watson become the king. That way, I can continue living with Avril, and the time will return to more than 10 years ago. What a pity. Amidst the roars of the zombies, King Landhar III's eyes never left the woman in the coffin. He looked nostalgic. You killed your 2 sons for that reason? Sylvan gulped. I never treated them as my sons. I don't even have any feelings for Isabella. I only love one person in my life. If you don't believe me, I can kill her now. That way, you can trust me. King Landhar III looked away from the woman in the coffin. His eyes were full of darkness. His words were firm and without a trace of humanity. Chapter 492. I agree. King Landhar III, you are truly a terrifying monster. Even if you are doing this for Avril, how can you kill your lover and children who have accompanied you all these years? Sylvan's expression when he looked at King Landhar III changed, becoming conflicted. I told you, I did that willingly. King Landhar III's expression was still cold. So, Sylvan, are you going to help me? You should have the same thoughts as me regarding Avril's resurrection, right? I'm sorry, I still can't believe what you said unless you can prove it to me. Sylvan's gaze wavered for a moment, but it quickly became firm. He had prepared for more than 10 years to take revenge on King Landhar III. Now that he finally stood in front of the monarch, he would not waver just because of a few words. After a few seconds of silence, King Landhar III nodded. Okay, I got it. As he spoke, he clapped his hands, and a few black shadows immediately appeared around him. They came before him and transformed into women dressed as maids, bowing respectfully. Your Majesty. On the surface, they were maids, but they were actually assassins that King Landhar III had trained to be by his side. Get Isabella here. Summon the third prince and Kiana here as well. Yes, Your Majesty. The maids quickly turned into streaks of light and left. After a while, Isabella and Kiana arrived at the depths of the garden. Your Majesty, you've never allowed us to enter this garden. You've always treated it as a restricted area. Why do you summon us here now? Also, regarding the deaths of our 2 sons, I feel that it has something to do with Watson. Please tell me the truth. This is not a request from the Queen but a mother. After Isabella reached the depths of the garden, she made a request to King Landhar III. Then, her gaze fell on the roaring zombies in the garden, as well as the huge coffin in the middle and the woman inside. Her expression froze. That is, Isabella, just as you thought. The person in the coffin is my former lover, the late Queen Avril. Didn't you want to know the truth? I'll tell you now. I've never loved you. You and your children are only my pawns. Now that I've found a way to resurrect Avril, I have no more use for you. You can be the nutrients to nourish Avril's body. Your Majesty, is this a joke? I must have heard it wrongly. Isabella's face was pale as she took 2 steps backward. King Landhar III turned around and spoke to the third prince. I planned for the battle in the sky. I wanted to occupy Watson's body. He is the key to resurrecting Avril. Furthermore, my body is too old, and Avril's body remains the same. I needed a younger body. So, I killed 2 of my sons. You must have been Veshoktan. I told you to look for treasures. I was delighted with what you had presented, so why did I dismiss you? I only needed 2 incompetent princes to sacrifice them to the gods. You did a good job, so I let you go. Father, please don't say any more. The third prince covered his ears and shook his head. He did not dare listen anymore. I have already told you the truth. I believe you have no complaints even if you were to die here today. King Landhar III finally looked at Kiana and used the gentlest tone to say the most ruthless words. Kiana, my daughter, I have always doted on you. I have fulfilled all your requests since you were young. Now it's your turn to help me. Die for me, okay? Do it. King Landhar III waved his hand. The maids immediately turned into black shadows and appeared behind Isabella and her 2 children. Their daggers reflected a cold light and slashed at their throats. Desperation appeared in their eyes as they were about to die. They could no longer make any sounds. The daggers had touched their skin, cutting through their capillaries and allowing their blood to seep out. At that moment, a spark appeared in the air and rapidly grew, turning into a small blazing sun. The light engulfed the assassins' daggers and melted them into boiling liquid. The assassins retreated because of the heat. Roar! 2 enormous translucent wings spread out on Sylvan's back. The wings flickered with colors. Colorful pollen flew by with the wind as the wings flapped gently, landing on Isabella's and the children's necks. The pollen fused into the wound, instantly healing them. King Landhar III, enough. You're too wicked. Sylvan, didn't you want me to prove it to you? I'm trying to do that. Why are you blaming me? King Landhar III seemed puzzled. I understand what you're thinking, but these people are innocent. Let them go. Sylvan glanced at Isabella and the children. He did not have a good impression of that queen. After all, that woman had replaced Avril. However, he pitied her. That won't do, Sylvan. They've already known my secret. I won't give them a chance to leak it to anyone. King Landhar III raised his right hand, and a giant black ball appeared. It emitted a constant gravitational force as if it was about to land before Isabella and the other 2. At that moment, the dragon wings on Sylvan's back flapped slightly, and he instantly appeared in front of King Landhar III. I've said enough. As his voice fell, everything around him changed. The flower bed on the ground extended infinitely, and clusters of blooming pansies appeared. The zombies disappeared, and so did Isabella and the palace. In the endless sea of flowers, Avril, wearing a long golden dress, was not lying in a coffin but sitting in the flower bed. She hugged her knees and looked at Sylvan and King Landhar III. The Kingdom of Illusion. That was the Starlight Tier ability that Sylvan had mastered after he became a dream elven dragon. He could forcefully pull others into the illusion that he had created. Avril, As he turned his head to look at Avril, who was sitting in the flower bed and brushing her hair that the wind caressed, the black ball in King Landhar III's hand dissipated. A thought appeared in his eyes. Friar, Brother Sylvan, you two are idiots. Instead of appreciating the flowers, you are fighting. What if you hurt these flowers because of that? King Landhar III opened his mouth, subconsciously wanting to admit his mistake. Suddenly, he turned around to see a younger Cylon, an illusion. Sylvan, do you think this is enough to trick me? Friar, I don't mean to belittle you. I just needed a moment to protect the Empress and the two children. There is another reason I dragged you here. Now that there are only the two of us here, we can have a good chat. Regarding the matter that you suggested, I agree to help you.